Chapter 169. Mu Yu had been trapped in Long Ting's stomach for a few days. He had been thinking about how to rescue Long Ting from inside Long Ting's body. This was a very tricky problem, because if he wanted to rescue Long Ting, it meant that he had to escape from a group of nascent soul stage cultivators and a few out-of-body stage cultivators. This was not a small challenge for a Jindan stage cultivator like him. Oh no, this was a huge challenge. Withered Tree Evergreen is so powerful. We also stole a lot of treasures from him last time. Quickly take them out and see if there's anything useful. Xiao Shui gave a rare good suggestion. Mu Yu took out the poison scripture and the night pearl. Looking at things inside Long Ting's body did not affect Mu Yu at all. The poison scripture was a very thick book. There were some simple illustrations inside. Just the table of contents alone was dozens of pages. Mu Yu felt that Withered Tree Evergreen was also very powerful to be able to write so many words. People's faces turn pale when they talk about poison. They stay away from it. This is the understanding of short-sighted people. Poison and medicine are actually not fundamentally different. The same kind of medicine, if used properly, can save people. If used improperly, people will die. If you can study all the poisons in the world, then you can also cure all the diseases in the world. It sounded quite reasonable. Could it be that Withered Tree Evergreen was a doctor who saved the dying and helped the injured? My lifelong pursuit of the Tao of immortal cultivation is to use poison to enter the Tao. If you can obtain this poison scripture, you must use poison as your Tao of cultivation. Only then can you obtain my true inheritance. So Withered Tree Evergreen threw the poison scripture around because he hoped that someone would obtain it. However, this was not Mu Yu's original intention. What entering the Tao through poison? Now, it was more appropriate to use poison to escape. Mu Yu directly skipped the first 7 or 8 pages of Withered Tree's Tao of Poison. If the world knew that Mu Yu had wasted the poison scripture, and that it was the poison scripture that came from Withered Tree Evergreen, they would definitely hang Mu Yu up and beat him up. If you don't want it, give it to me. Mu Yu did not know what this poison scripture meant to Withered Tree, and what it meant to many cultivators. Deadwood Evergreen was a person with unfathomable strength, and his poison Tao was extraordinary. His Poison Sutra not only taught people how to use poison, but also recorded in detail how all the rare poisons in the world worked on the human body. Poison could destroy a person's organs. Understanding poison meant that one understood the toxicology behind it, and it would be easier to detoxify it. However, Mu Yu was not afraid of poison at all. If he was poisoned, he could just hide in the trees and get rid of it. The poison scripture was a precious scripture for doctors. Unfortunately, it was obtained by Mu Yu, who didn't know what was good for him. He didn't even look at Dead Tree's conclusion. He only wanted to know how to use poison to escape. After all, he had moved all of Dead Tree's belongings here. Dead Tree was so powerful. His poison should be a piece of cake to deal with these people, right? Mu Yu took out a small bottle with the words, Wind Dissipation Powder, written on the label. Hearing the name, there was a hint of artistic freshness, but he didn't know what it was for. Wind Dissipation Powder, Wind Dissipation Powder. Mu Yu looked for Wind Dissipation Powder according to the catalogue of the poison scripture. This was not a simple task. The catalogue of the poison scripture had more than 30 pages, and each page was densely filled with the names of many kinds of poisons. The poison scripture divided poisons into 9 levels. Level 1 was the weakest, and level 9 was the most toxic. Found it. Mu Yu finally found Wind Dissipation Powder in the densely packed catalogue. Wind Dissipation Powder, Level 2 Poison, Green Powder, Composition. Serious Grass. Mu Yu skipped the composition and toxicology. He only wanted to know the effect. Wind Dissipation Powder, as the name suggests, this poison moves with the wind and becomes colorless and odorless. It drifts in the air. Once a cultivator inhales it, the spiritual power of his whole body will disperse and he can't condense spiritual power. Those below the nascent soul stage will die if inhaled. Mu Yu was speechless. This wind dissipation powder was only a level 2 poison, but it could actually kill cultivators below the nascent soul stage. Wasn't this poison too terrible? Dead Tree didn't seem to be a kind person. This should be used with caution. I'll be finished if I'm poisoned. Mu Yu carefully put it back into his Qiankuan bag. He was not as casual as he was at the beginning. Poison name, flowing light, crystal form. When exposed to light, it will emit a dazzling light, which can make people temporarily blind. If it's too close, it will burn and blind people. The thing in this bottle was also a fraud. Dead Tree must have a special method to use it, but Mu Yu didn't find the right way to use it. If he casually threw this thing, he would most likely be the one who would be blinded. It was better to leave this thing aside first. Mu Yu took out a bottle of poison called Flame Explosion. This flame explosion was not in the form of powder, but looked like an elixir. He found an explanation of flame explosion in the poison scripture. This thing would explode when stimulated by spiritual power. If a person swallowed it, then this person couldn't use spiritual power for the rest of his life, or he would explode and die. In other words, this medicine forced a cultivator to become an ordinary person. F***ck. So ruthless? If this flame explosion was accidentally swallowed, the cultivator wouldn't be able to use spiritual power for the rest of his life. This was a process that was worse than death. The more Mu Yu read the poison scripture, the more frightened he was. Who was this Dead Tree? How could the poison he made be so terrible? He didn't dare to use it anymore. The reason why he was able to walk out of the Withered Tree Valley so easily last time was because of luck, because he couldn't afford to provoke these poisons. If these poisons were used by the Withered Tree to protect the celestial demon tree, several wood feathers wouldn't be enough to destroy them. Fortunately, the Dead Tree's original intention was only to find a successor, not to find a dead person. However, Mu Yu took a lot of poisons from the Dead Tree this time. He chose a few poisons that didn't look very fierce, but had a better chance of escaping. He was ready to find an opportunity to give these people who participated in the auction an unforgettable experience of resisting poison. The appearance of the dragon vine caused a huge sensation in the cultivation world. Very few people had seen a real dragon. Most people received a secret order from their sect to be sure to buy the dragon vine. The dragon vine was an extremely strong medicinal herb, and it was a necessary ingredient for refining pills. There were many dragon vines that couldn't move, but a dragon vine that had turned into a dragon was not ordinary. Dragon vine? Interesting. In a pavilion on the floating immortal island, Luo Shang looked at the auction invitation in his hand and nodded thoughtfully. Because of the appearance of the dragon vine, Huai Baiwan postponed all the auction items. They knew that if other treasures were auctioned before the dragon vine, people might not be willing to buy them and would leave their spirit stones to the dragon vine. Shimen Wuji was sitting opposite Luo Shang, and he also received the same invitation. "Brother Luo Shang, are you interested in this?" Luo Shang didn't answer, and he just looked at the auction hall in the distance. "I heard that the dragon vine ate a person during the Jindan period yesterday. That person was also unlucky," Shimen Wuji said. This guy was always fearless in the cultivation world. He didn't hold back to anyone, but he didn't dare to act arrogantly in front of Luo Shang. "I guess the people from the Pill Cauldron sect and the Earth Emperor sect won't let the dragon vine go," Luo Shang said. The Pill Cauldron sect was needless to say. The dragon vine was a top-grade medicinal ingredient, and a dragon vine that had turned into a dragon was even more precious. The Earth Emperor sect loved to deal with demonic beasts, and they hadn't tamed a dragon yet. But it's not that easy to get the dragon vine. A dragon vine that has turned into a dragon is very precious. This auction might sell for a sky-high price," Shimen Wuji said. Luo Shang was also thinking about this, but he wasn't too worried. Not far from Luo Shang's pavilion, Meng Xian, who was wearing a thin yellow gauze dress, was looking at Luo Shang's pavilion with a peaceful expression. Although she knew that Luo Shang would come to this island and wouldn't show any mercy when he saw her, she still came. Senior sister, is that guy called Luo Shang really that powerful? Roanna was also here. She had already broken through to the nascent soul stage, but she didn't receive an invitation from the floating immortal island. She came with Meng Xian. He's very strong. I lost when I fought with him last time. Meng Xian said indifferently. Even senior sister can't beat him? Roanna frowned. Meng Xian's cultivation was very strong. Among the younger generation of the floating immortal island, she was ranked among the top. No one would choose to make an enemy out of a fairy like Meng Xian. However, Meng Xian clearly had a grudge with Luo Shang for some reason. Shimin Wuji didn't like to talk to any man. He only liked to tease women, but when Luo Shang came, he showed great enthusiasm. This made many people wonder who Luo Shang was. What was the background of this Luo Shang? His background isn't small. Meng Xian said indifferently. We must get the dragon vine. Meng Xian looked in another direction, where a faint dragon's roar could be heard. But we're here for other auction items. Roanna hesitated. When the dragon vine is refined into a pill, its medicinal strength is even stronger than the life-prolonging pill. A dragon vine that has turned into a dragon is very important to the elders of the sect. Meng Xian's eyes flashed with a determined light. It wasn't just her. Basically, everyone who knew about the dragon vine that had turned into a dragon wanted it. The reason why every sect was able to stand tall and not be eaten away by other sects was because they had hidden senior experts. However, no matter how powerful they were, their lifespan would come to an end one day. Life-prolonging pills were essential, but there were times when the life-prolonging pills would lose their effectiveness. A dragon vine that had turned into a dragon was very valuable to a sect that was about to pass away. In the pavilion where the Pill Cauldron sect was located, Xiao Hua sat there alone. After a while, another two young men walked in. One was tall and the other was short. The tall one had an elegant demeanor and looked like a talent, while the short one looked somewhat gloomy. Shi Yun? Why are you here? Xiao Hua frowned as he looked at the gloomy young man. Shi Yun wasn't outstanding in the Pill Cauldron sect, so he didn't have the qualifications to receive an invitation from the floating immortal island. I brought him in. Shi Yun brought a message from the sect master. The elegant young man was called Bi Wenxuan. He had received an invitation from the floating immortal island. What message? Xiao Hua didn't seem to like Shi Yun, but he had a different attitude towards Bi Wenxuan. Shi Yun didn't like Xiao Hua either. He sneered and said, "The dragon vine has appeared. The sect master wants you to get the dragon vine, no matter the price." Xiao Hua didn't say anything. He would try his best to get the dragon vine that had turned into a dragon. In the pavilion of the Earth Emperor sect, an elegant young man looked at the faint dragon roar in the distance. His eyes flashed. "Xinggao, are we going to get involved with the dragon vine that has turned into a dragon?" A young man asked. If Mu Yu was here, he would definitely recognize this young man. This was because this young man was the first to appear on the day Xiao Shui was struck by lightning. He was Su Yang from the Earth Emperor sect. As for Xinggao to have this name, he would definitely think of Kai Lai. This elegant young man was Kai Lai's brother. It was just that Xinggao joined the Earth Emperor sect, while Kai Lai joined the Pill Cauldron sect. Legend has it that the dragon vine that has turned into a dragon is not weaker than an out-of-body cultivator. If we can tame it, it will naturally be a good thing. Even if we can't tame it, it will still be very precious. We must get it. Xinggao's eyes flashed. The people from the Pill Cauldron sect and the Earth Emperor sect were drooling over the dragon vine. Needless to say, the people from the Pill Cauldron sect would be very useful in their hands. As for the people from the Earth Emperor sect, they specialized in taming all kinds of demonic beasts. Naturally, they were very interested in the dragon vine that had turned into a dragon. Chapter 170. An auction with only one item was extraordinary. Over the past few days, news of it had spread to every corner of the cultivation world as if it had grown wings. Many people coveted this once-in-10,000 years auction item. Basically, anyone with a little bit of knowledge knew that the dragonized dragon vine could be refined into a powerful life prolongation pill to extend the lifespan of the seniors in the sect. Normally, the life prolongation pill would also use the dragon vine as the main ingredient. However, finding the 1,000-year-old dragon vine was already the limit. Legend had it that the life prolongation pill refined from the 10,000-year-old dragon vine could even double a person's lifespan. In other words, if one lived for 200 years, one could live for another 200 years. Although legends were legends and no one had verified them, many people chose to believe them because the real 10,000-year-old dragon vine was right in front of them. Whether it was a legend or not, they would be able to verify it once they obtained it. These geniuses came from various large sections. They had all received secret letters from their respective sects and came prepared. Mu Yu was inside Long Ting's body. Along with the dragon vine, he was put into a dark box. He did not know where it was transported to, but he guessed that it must be the auction hall. Sure enough, after a while, Miss Bai Ya's friendly voice sounded from above. "Welcome everyone to today's auction. I am today's auctioneer, Bai Ya. I believe everyone is familiar with me." Bai Ya had reached the nascent soul stage at such a young age. Although her achievements were not as outstanding as those of the younger generation, she was still the daughter of a wealthy family. Her reputation was not inferior to these people. Miss Bai Ya looked around. She knew almost everyone present. Even if she had not spoken to them before, she had detailed information on them. She knew how to deal with each of them. Today, she was wearing a red cheongsam. She looked very charming. Her curvaceous figure set off a charming temperament. Many young men could not take their eyes off her. Dragon vine is a very rare medicine. 1,000-year-old dragon vine has a huge amount of vitality. If refined properly, it can extend a person's lifespan for a long time. However, a 10,000-year-old dragon vine is even rarer. A 10,000-year-old dragon vine already has the ability to transform into a true dragon. It is almost impossible for people to encounter a 10,000-year-old dragon vine because it has the ability to move and think. It is not easy to catch it. Fortunately, we encountered a dragon vine that had just transformed into a dragon. This dragon vine had transformed into a true dragon on the way to Floating Immortal Island for various reasons. As businessmen, we will sell this kind of thing to the fated person. Many people listened quietly. Everyone couldn't wait to see what the so-called true dragon looked like. Even though Bai Ya was full of charm and her voice was magnetic, and it was already a beautiful thing to admire her figure, there were still people who interrupted her and urged her to quickly put up for sale. Bai Ya didn't delay any longer. She smiled faintly and waved her lily-white hand. The center of the auction stage split open and a huge sandalwood box slowly rose up. This box almost took up the entire auction stage, and even Bai Ya had to retreat. The four sides of the box cracked open, revealing the huge dragon vines that were imprisoned by the spirit chi array. Everyone's eyes widened. Even though everyone was knowledgeable, they couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. However, the dragon vine didn't roar angrily at the crowd as expected. It only looked at the people around it coldly. It didn't even bother to move and just lay there. "This is the legendary dragon vine? It's a little different from what I imagined. I thought it would at least hit the spirit chi array furiously. Why is it so quiet? It can't be fake, right? You haven't seen a dragon before. How do you know how the dragon will react? Everyone discussed spiritedly. In legends, dragons had always been domineering and disdained to be associated with humans. Once they saw humans, they would roar at them provocatively. However, legends were legends after all. The dragon vine didn't even think of paying attention to these people. Everyone, don't doubt it. This is the real dragon vine. It's just that it has been imprisoned by us. At first, it was rampaging, but when it found out that it couldn't escape, it probably didn't plan to struggle. This is also good, so everyone doesn't have to work hard to tame it. Baya spoke again to answer everyone's doubts. The auction hall was a round room. There was an auction stage in the center, and it was surrounded by people. There were at least 200 to 300 people here. Even if everyone wasn't looking at Muyu, Muyu still felt a little uncomfortable. With so many pairs of eyes staring at him, would he have a chance to do anything? Then, let's start the auction now. I'm sure everyone knows how precious the dragon vine is. The starting price is 1,000,000 spirit stones, and each increase must be no less than 100,000. As soon as Baya's voice fell, there was an uproar. Many people frowned. The starting price was 1,000,000. This wasn't a small number. Each increase was 100,000. Wasn't this robbery? 1,000,000, my God, what kind of concept is that? Muyu only had a few tens of thousands of spirit stones in his pocket. It wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth, let alone participate in the auction. 1,000,000 wasn't a big sum for these people. Everyone came from famous sects, and this time, their sects had sent a secret message saying that they must get the dragon vine. Therefore, they were prepared to spend a lot of money. 2,000,000. Sure enough, someone called out a price in a short while. There were still many big shots who didn't lack money. In a short time, the price was raised to 2,000,000. 2.5 million. Big earthworm, you are 2.5 million! Xiao Shuai exclaimed. Muyu couldn't help but laugh. 3,000,000. The bids came one after another. No matter how high the price was, someone would still call out a price. If a sect's ancestor could live for another 100 or 200 years, a few million would be a piece of cake. Wow! 5,000,000. Big earthworm, you are actually worth so much? How many drumsticks can you buy with 5,000,000? Xiao Shuai counted with his fingers like a miser in the dragon vine's body. He unconsciously drooled. Muyu was angry and amused at the same time. Xiao Shuai, how much do you think you can sell for? The little mouse can sell for 500. The dragon vine's voice was neither painful nor itchy. To outsiders, it spoke by roaring. Therefore, when it roared, the crowd immediately quieted down. Then, they immediately boiled over. It was the first time they heard a dragon's roar. Everyone was very surprised. Big earthworm, what did you say? I want to sell for at least 50,000,000. I am a priceless item. Xiao Shuai was unhappy. A priceless item is something that can be bought without money, the dragon vine said. Who said I can be bought without money? No, I am not selling it at all. Xiao Shuai was very angry. Muyu ignored the bickering of these two weirdos. He looked around, trying to find someone he knew. Unfortunately, this was impossible. He didn't know many people here. He mainly wanted to find Luo Shang and Shimen Wuji. He only knew these two people. There were too many people, so he did not see them at a glance. However, he saw a woman in yellow clothes in a corner. It was Meng Xian, who was as calm and peaceful as a goddess. Meng Xian had an indifferent and otherworldly temperament. She stood there as if her surroundings were harmonious. It was impossible not to be noticed. Beside her was the petty woman who had a grudge with Muyu, Ro Anna. This Ro Anna stepped into the nascent soul stage so quickly? Muyu was somewhat surprised. He had not seen Ro Anna for a few days and she had actually become a nascent soul stage cultivator. How did she break through so quickly? 10,000,000. Pill Cauldron Sex Xing Gao directly raised the price from 5,000,000 to 10,000,000. No one was surprised that Xing Gao made a move. It would be surprising if the Earth Emperor sect did not come. 11 million. Xiaohua said. Pill Cauldron sect's people were naturally rich and overbearing. The dragon vine that had turned into a dragon was a top-grade medicine. When he directly raised the price by 1 million, many people stopped bidding. Although the dragon vine that had turned into a dragon was good, perhaps only the Pill Cauldron sect and the Earth Emperor sect would make the best use of it. Competing with these two major powers was not a good thing. 15 million. Xing Gao once again raised the price. He knew that his younger brother was Xiaohua's junior brother, but in front of the dragon vine, he could not represent himself. No matter how high the price was, he still had to follow. Xiaohua also did not want to embarrass Xing Gao. He said in a clear voice, "Brother Xing Gao, I know that your Earth Emperor sect is also very interested in the dragon vine that had turned into a dragon. How about this, our two sects will bid for it and study it together?" Xing Gao smiled and said, "That would naturally be excellent." Pill Cauldron sect and Earth Emperor sect had a good relationship. After all, alchemy sometimes required animal blood and demon spirit. These were all provided by the Earth Emperor sect. As for how to deal with the dragon vine that had turned into a dragon, that was a problem for the respective elders to consider. 50 million. Meng Xian suddenly opened her mouth and directly raised the price from 1555 million to 50 million. This made Xiaohua and Xing Gao a little surprised. It was natural for the two of them to fight over the dragon vine, but why was the Jade sect's people also fighting over it? 50 million was already a sky-high price. Many sects, even if they were rich, would not be able to take out so many spiritual stones at once. Everyone glanced at the person who had raised the price. When they saw that it was the fairy sister, Miss Meng Xian, they were relieved. The Jade sect did not lack money. Everyone looked at Meng Xian differently. Meng Xian was a woman that many men yearned for. Her appearance and temperament were 1 in a million. All the young heroes looked at her with infatuation and admiration. In their eyes, Meng Xian from the Jade sect was like a lotus flower that had just emerged from the water, sacred and inviolable. Perhaps it was because of admiration, but when Meng Xian raised the price, the entire place quieted down for a moment. The Pill Cauldron sect and Earth Emperor sect did not raise the price. Although the dragon vine was rare, it was not worth spending such a high price to obtain it. To the Pill Cauldron sect, it was just a medicinal ingredient. 50 million for a medicinal ingredient was not worth it. To the Earth Emperor sect, the dragon vine was not easy to tame. They could spend 50 million, but it was hard to say if it was worth it. Beiya looked at Meng Xian with an unfriendly gaze. Although she was also a woman, Beiya was more mature. However, her temperament was far from the Jade sect's Meng Xian. People said that the Jade sect was full of beauties. This was not a baseless rumor. Meng Xian indeed had a beauty that could topple countries. Beiya naturally did not like Meng Xian. Beauty was one thing, but at the same time it was also because of her job. Her goal today was to raise the price of the dragon vine to an unimaginable level. 50 million was far from the price she had expected. If the other young men gave up just because Meng Xian wanted it, how could she be willing to accept that? But even so, as the daughter of a businessman, Beiya wouldn't bring her emotions to work. She still had a smile on her face as she looked around and asked, 50 million. Miss Meng Xian from the Jade Gate has bid 50 million. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher than her? If not, this precious dragon vine will be sold to Miss Meng Xian for 50 million. Chapter 171. 51 million. Someone bid 51 million, which made many people unable to accept. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice. They all wanted to know who actually dared to fight over something with the fairy sister. Shiman Wuji, it's actually you. You shameless person, can you even take out 51 million? Very quickly, everyone's focus locked onto Shimin Wuji, because the source of the voice was Shimin Wuji. Mu Yu also looked towards the source of the voice. He finally found the person he was looking for, that elusive second senior brother, Luo Shang. At this moment, he was sitting beside Shimin Wuji. Just now, the bid was actually Luo Shang, but unfortunately, many people didn't recognize Luo Shang. They all thought it was Shimin Wuji who bid. Shimin Wuji shrugged his shoulders indifferently, then took out his fan and confidently waved it. 51 million or not, it's none of your business. But if Meng Xian agrees to marry me, then I can consider using 51 million to bid for the dragon vine, and then give it to you. How about it? Although Shimin Wuji was misunderstood, but he disdained to explain anything. He only looked at Meng Xian with a face full of smiles, and his eyes unrestrainedly swept over Meng Xian's body. Shimin Wuji, you are truly shameless. You want Miss Meng Xian to marry you. Is your brain damaged or what? Many people knew how Shimin Wuji teased Meng Xian that day. That day, Shimin Wuji walked in front of Meng Xian, and said that he wanted to marry Meng Xian. His tone was so sincere, as if this was a very simple matter, and he didn't feel awkward at all. In any case, his face was very thick, and he never took other people's words to heart. To be honest, Shimin Wuji could also be considered a very handsome person. If he was together with Meng Xian, then they could be considered a perfect match. Unfortunately, his reputation was too bad, no one liked him, and even more so, no one would let him tarnish the goddess in their heart. Mu Yu already knew that Shimin Wuji was an unreliable person. That day, he even affectionately called him little brother-in-law, wanting to establish a relationship with him, and entangle with Tian Ran, but now, in the blink of an eye, he changed his target, this shameless womanizer. 55 million. Meng Xian didn't care about Shimin Wuji's words, and only continued to bid. 56 million. Luo Shang again. This time, everyone clearly saw that the person who bid was not Shimin Wuji, this loose man, rather an unknown person sitting next to him. Who is he? How dare you snatch something from a fairy? Those who can come here are not simple. 2 days ago, he used 2 fingers to beat back Lu Feng. Interesting. I would like to meet this person. Everyone present was a famous young man, and none of them were willing to submit to the other. Although Luo Shang could defeat Lu Feng, it did not mean that he could defeat them. After all, many of them had not fought against each other before. Without fighting against each other, the arrogance in their hearts would not be restrained. They all wanted to give it a try and defeat 1 or 2 people to prove themselves. Meng Xian looked at Luo Shang. Although she was afraid of Luo Shang, she knew that Luo Shang wouldn't make a move against her here. There was no risk in competing with him. Once she obtained the item, she could leave immediately. She also didn't need to worry about Luo Shang playing any trick. In an auction, the highest bidder would get the item. 60 million. Meng Xian was determined to obtain the dragon vine. 61 million. Luo Shang wouldn't give up either. This brat is doing this on purpose, right? He always bids 1 million more than Miss Meng Xian. Can't he be a little more manly and directly bid a higher price? Some people began to feel that Luo Shang was deliberately picking on Meng Xian. Many people looked at Luo Shang with hostility. After all, one was the holy maiden of the Jade sect, while the other was a nobody. Everyone would naturally side with Meng Xian. There were also some people who were watching the show. They weren't like the others who had become simple-minded because of the fairy. A nobody definitely wouldn't be invited by the floating immortal island. Luo Shang definitely had his reasons for coming here. The price had already soared to 91 million. This had already exceeded Bai Ya's expectations. She was happy to see the 2 of them continue to raise the price. No matter who obtained the dragon vine in the end, her auction house would benefit the most. That was 91 million. She had never auctioned an item for such a price. Not to mention her, Even her father's auction house had never auctioned such a ridiculous price. 91 million. Miss Meng Xian might be able to take it out, but does this Luo Shang really have that many spirit stones? Some people began to mutter. 90 million was already a huge expenditure for many sections. Some sects couldn't even take out that much. Just where did this Luo Shang come from? If he couldn't take it out, he would be fooled by everyone here. At the very least, those with 1,000,000 spirit stones wouldn't let him off. Luo Shang is that rich? Mu Yu's eyes widened. How could it be that not only was his master a low-key tycoon, but even his second senior brother was extremely wealthy? If that was the case, then he would have to go hungry every day. How much suffering would he have to suffer from the gluttonous Xiao Shuai? If he had known this would happen, he would have thrown Xiao Shuai to Luo Shang. He would have definitely raised Xiao Shuai into a pig. Meng Xian's expression finally became serious. 90 million was already her bottom line. She definitely wouldn't be able to take out that much at once. She would have to return to the sect. However, the sect wouldn't hesitate to help the dragonized dragon vine. But if she increased the price any further, the sect master might have something to say. Although the Jade sect was rich, taking out so many spirit stones at once would be too much for the sect. 90 million ah! If this goes on, it'll be 10 million. Xiao Shuai blinked his eyes. He was silently counting his little claws, calculating how many delicious things he could buy with this amount of money. Little mouse, how uncultured. Dragon Vine sneered. Big earthworm, what did you say? Mu Yu also laughed. Xiao Shuai was too naive. He didn't know what the next unit of 10 million was. However, 90 million was only a vague concept for Mu Yu. He had never seen so much money before. Fellow Taoist, can you give this dragon vine to Meng Xian? Meng Xian can use the other treasures of the Jade sect to exchange for it. Meng Xian didn't continue to raise the price. She politely mentioned her identity. She indicated that she could use the other treasures of the Jade sect to exchange for it. She wanted Luo Shang to know that her status in the Jade sect wasn't low. I do want something from the Jade sect. If you can take it out, I won't compete with you. Luo Shang looked at Meng Xian indifferently. Meng Xian smiled. As long as the request wasn't too excessive, Meng Xian would consider it. She asked, I don't know what brother Luo Shang wants. Luo Shang looked at Meng Xian. His gaze suddenly became fierce. It's very simple, your life. What? Luo Shang's voice suddenly caused an uproar. Many people thought that they had misheard. Was this brat's brain damaged? He actually wanted to take the life of elder sister Immortal? Was he a rogue cultivator from somewhere? Had he never heard of the Jade sect? Mu Yu was also surprised. Since when did Luo Shang have enmity with elder sister Immortal? Who the hell is this brat? Is he crazy? Meng Xian is such a pure and holy person. He wants to kill her? Isn't he afraid that the Jade sect will find trouble with him? This brat won't live for long. Many people secretly shook their heads. Everyone was clear about the significance of the 8 sects in the third layer continent. This brat dared to be so rampant with only the cultivation of nascent soul realm. He was destined to be taught a lesson. After all, he wasn't a shameless devil like Shimen Wuji. The power of the devil was not weaker than the 8 sects. Could it be that this person called Luo Shang also came from a mysterious devil like Shimen Wuji? But even Shimen Wuji wouldn't brazenly say that he wanted to kill the people of the 8 sects. Otherwise, no matter how strong the devil was, they wouldn't be stronger than the alliance of the 8 sects. Meng Xian sighed in her heart. In the end, he still didn't forget about that matter. Others didn't know where Luo Shang came from, but she could guess a little. With Luo Shang's straightforward killing method, Meng Xian knew that he wouldn't be lenient just because she was beautiful. I don't know how Meng Xian offended you. Why do you want to take Meng Xian's life? If you don't give Meng Xian a reason, Meng Xian won't let this matter go. Otherwise, wouldn't the prestige of the Jade sect be ruined? Meng Xian could only say this. With so many people present, if she didn't say anything, then she would appear to be a coward. Her image represented the Jade sect. She couldn't shrink back just because of someone's threat. Why ask what you did when you already know the answer? A person like you who looks so pure and holy can also do such a dirty and shameless thing. I think many people don't know how you stabbed people in the back, right? Luo Shang's voice was very soft, but it clearly passed into everyone's ears. Everyone turned their gaze towards Meng Xian, waiting to see how she would explain. Fairy sister stabbed people in the back? How could this be possible? What nonsense was this brat talking about? If you want to condemn someone, you can always find some excuse. Meng Xian's every word and action represents the 8 sects. I don't need to be afraid of anything. Meng Xian said. You will definitely die. Luo Shang didn't bother to explain anything to others. Mu Yu felt that this matter was getting more and more interesting. Luo Shang actually had some kind of grudge with this beautiful fairy sister. He also didn't know how this Jade Sect's fairy sister had offended Luo Shang to the point of drawing her sword. This was too interesting. Mu Yu decided to dig out this gossip. I say, brother Luo Shang, this isn't too good. Miss Meng Xian and I were betrothed when we were children. She is my future wife. If you kill her, what am I going to do? Shimen Wuji said to Luo Shang. His words caused the surrounding people to roll their eyes. This shameless bastard also dared to talk nonsense. Then I would like to meet your distinguished self. Meng Xian's clothes fluttered without any wind. A pure and holy aura surrounded her. Her expression was as calm as before, with a faint smile on her face. She looked like a fairy that had descended to the mortal world. Many people were dumbfounded. Luo Shang didn't make any move. He only looked at Meng Xian. His gaze had a kind of oppressive feeling. As long as Meng Xian dared to make a move, she would be greeted with the aura of death. Beiya felt that something was wrong. This was an auction house. If these two people were to fight, then today's transaction would be ruined. Beiya was clear about Luo Shang's identity. Their floating immortal island naturally wouldn't invite a nobody. Luo Shang and Meng Xian were both people they didn't want to provoke. If something happened to them on the floating immortal island, then it would be a huge stain on the floating immortal island's reputation. The two of you, please behave yourselves in the auction house. Today we are only talking about business. There is no need for grudges. Beiya stood out to smooth things over. The 4 out-of-body experts around the auction stage also released their auras. They firmly locked onto the two people, preparing to suppress them if they made any move. Meng Xian withdrew her aura and said indifferently, 95 million. 95 million. This number made many people's expressions change. Everyone looked at Luo Shang. However, to everyone's surprise, Luo Shang didn't continue bidding. He only smiled, then turned around and left. Mu Yu was very happy to join in the fun. However, when Luo Shang left, he became anxious. His purpose this time was to look for Luo Shang. Naturally, he hoped that Luo Shang would be able to obtain the dragon vine. This way, he wouldn't have to waste his time thinking about how to escape. Now that Luo Shang left, the situation wouldn't develop according to his expectations. Come back. Quickly buy the dragon vine. You bastard! Mu Yu almost jumped out and pointed a finger at Luo Shang's nose and cursed. Many people were puzzled by Luo Shang's sudden departure. However, they soon understood. Perhaps Luo Shang wasn't interested in the dragon vine at all. His goal was just to make Meng Xian suffer a loss. Meng Xian also thought of this point. Her expression didn't change, but her heart was filled with hatred. The dragon vine was originally worth 50 million, but now it had been raised to 90 million. How could she not be angry? 95 million. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher? If not, then I declare that the dragon vine belongs to me. It belongs to this old man. A thunderous sound rang out, and a withered hand suddenly reached out from the void, grabbing at the imprisoned dragon vine. Who is it? The 4 out-of-body experts on the auction stage shouted in anger. However, before they could react, the 4 of them were sent flying. Chapter 172. Dragon Vine, Jie. This old man has been looking for it for so long, and I finally found it. It's mine. The appearance of the severed soul stage old monster made everyone's expression change. The giant hand that appeared out of thin air exuded a huge pressure, and several nascent soul stage youths who were closer were directly oppressed to the point of bleeding from their 7 orifices. If it weren't for the fact that each of them was more or less powerful, they would have been finished. Let's go! Someone shouted, and everyone flew outside one after another. A severed soul stage old monster's attack was not a joke. The out-of-body stage old monster had already made nascent soul stage cultivators unable to withstand it. In front of a severed soul stage old monster, nascent soul stage cultivators were simply a joke. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Beiya's face was very ugly. She should have known that the dragonized dragon vine would attract some people's covetous eyes. However, she did not expect that it would attract a mysterious old monster of the spirit-severing stage. Even if her father appeared, he could not control the situation. Just when the huge withered hand was about to grab the dragon vine, suddenly another ugly crutch flew out from the other side of the void and repelled the withered hand. The majestic spiritual power shot out and destroyed the entire auction hall. You can't take the dragon vine for nothing, old monster Wu. Another severed soul stage old monster also made a move. Zhuang Hong, humph. You dare to compete with this old man for the dragon vine? Old monster Wu's angry voice sounded in the void. His figure did not appear, and no one knew what he looked like. However, when the names of old monster Wu and Zhuang Hong came out, everyone's expression changed. These 2 were once famous seniors in the cultivation world. They were also itinerant cultivators who were overlords of a region. After being silent for so many years, they thought that they were already lying in their coffins. Unexpectedly, the appearance of the dragon vine lifted their coffins. You 2 are really impatient. Another old woman's voice sounded. This voice was very strange. Everyone could imagine that it came from an old woman with a mouth full of teeth. How can I not be impatient? Where is the dragon vine? I thought you all went to the King of Hell to report. A gloomy voice echoed in the sky. Muyu couldn't help but click his tongue. How many old monsters were coveting the dragon vine? There were only a few who made a move, and he didn't know how many more had not made a move. He really had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. How could he encounter such a deceptive situation? Nascent soul stage cultivators were already difficult enough to deal with, let alone out-of-body stage cultivators. Now there were a few spirit-severing stage cultivators. How could he, who was still in the Jindan period, escape happily? There are so many of us. How are we going to split a dragon vine? Then let's see who's better. I've long disliked you guys. 1 death means 1 less person. I like this decision. Muyu didn't know which old monster said which sentence. Anyway, they were all hiding their heads and tails. Only their voices could be heard. There was no room for him to intervene at all. He only felt that the surrounding void was constantly shaking. It seemed that these old monsters were really going to fight without any hesitation. Wave after wave of dangerous aura swept over him. If he was swept by it, there would be nothing left of him. He had to think of a way to leave this place. The spirit array has been destroyed, Little Commander shouted. It could control the flow of spirit chi, but it still didn't have the ability to control the spirit chi of this spirit array. However, when this spirit array was destroyed by the terrifying aura of these old monsters, it immediately sensed it. Let's go. Run towards the trees, Muyu shouted. As long as they entered the trees, it would be a lot easier. The dragon vine roared, got up, and directly flew outside. Come back. We haven't even decided the victor, and you dare to run away? The old woman discovered the dragon vine's intention. A tattered dress flew out from the void. The dress grew as it was blown by the wind, and directly slapped the 10-meter-long dragon vine to the ground, trapping the dragon vine. The dragon vine kept struggling, but it found that it couldn't break free from this tattered and smelly dress. This dress was a high-grade artifact, and it wasn't something the dragon vine could break free from. How long has it been since this old witch washed clothes? Has she lost the virtue of being hygienic? Muyu smelled a sour stench coming from the dress, causing him to retch. That pungent smell almost made him cry. It's over. How are we going to escape? We were all killed by the big earthworms. Little Shuai also covered its little nose. There was a strange suffocating smell coming from this dress. Little Shuai had been eating until it was full, and it felt that it was only a matter of time before it vomited the food from last night. Muyu drilled out of the dragon vine's body and tried to lift a corner of the dress. However, the dress was too heavy, and he couldn't lift it at all. Muyu stepped on the ground again. This was a solid diamond rock, and Muyu couldn't do anything about it. Muyu couldn't hack it with his sword either. He wanted to try the sword intent of the broken sword, but he didn't dare to use it. This kind of move that hurt the enemy by 1,000 but also hurt himself by 800. Not to mention whether he could break this tattered dress. Even if he went out, his hand would be crippled. At that time, the chances would be even slimmer. Just when Muyu was at his wit's end, a corner of the dress was suddenly lifted, and an old man's voice came in. Come out, come out. Muyu was overjoyed, and hurriedly drilled out, and the dragon vine also followed. Don't talk. Shao, be careful. The place where Muyu came out just happened to be facing an exit. He glanced at the stuttering old man. The old man had a long green beard and hair. He looked a bit scary, and he actually stuttered. Old master, did you save us because you also want the dragon vine? Muyu asked warily. The green-haired old man shook his head. No. I saw that you guys, saw that we are handsome? Muyu continued. No. Yes, saw that I am handsome? Little Shuai jumped onto Muyu's shoulder. The green-haired old man widened his eyes and looked angrily at these two narcissistic weirdos. It seemed that he was unhappy because he was interrupted. Oh, exit over there. The green-haired old man decided not to explain the reason and pointed in a direction. Thank you, old master. Muyu hurriedly ran towards the exit. Muyu ran a few steps and stopped. He turned around and asked, You really don't have any ulterior motives? But just as he turned around, he suddenly realized that the green-haired old man had disappeared. Did I see a ghost in broad daylight? Muyu looked around and did not see any trace of the old man. Let's go. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Little Shuai urged. Muyu scratched his head in confusion, and then jumped onto the dragon vine's neck. The dragon vine carried him out of the passage and arrived at the floating immortal island. Above the floating immortal island, the young geniuses were watching from afar. As soon as Muyu came out on the dragon vine, he realized that something was wrong. He was directly exposed in front of everyone. Everyone was still in shock because of the appearance of the severed soul stage-old monster. When they saw Muyu flying out on the dragon vine, they were stunned for a few seconds. No one understood how the imprisoned dragon vine could escape from the hands of the severed soul stage-old monster. In particular, there was a young man riding on the dragon vine's neck. Speaking of which, where did this young man come from? Could he be a severed soul stage-old monster who had regained his youth? He is the one who was eaten by the dragon vine. He is still alive? A few of Bai Ya's subordinates had seen Muyu being swallowed by the dragon vine. One of them, a burly man with a curly beard, recognized Muyu. A young man from the Jindan period was riding on the dragon vine's neck. Who was this young man? He was still alive after being eaten by the dragon vine, and it seemed that he had tamed the dragon vine. Only one of the 8 sects, the earthly emperor sect, could do this. Everyone turned to look at Xinggao from the earthly emperor sect. He was the genius who had tamed the bear of the earth at the 9th heaven of the nascent soul stage when he had just entered the nascent soul stage. Xinggao knew what everyone was thinking, but he shook his head and denied it. I don't know this person. Catch the dragon vine. Beiya was also watching from the outside. She felt the humble Jindan period spiritual power fluctuation on Mu Yu's body. She was the first to react and rush towards Mu Yu. The stuttering old man only said that this was the exit, but he didn't say how many people were here. Mu Yu had a headache. In the face of so many people in the nascent soul stage, even 10 of him wouldn't be enough to escape. Shimin Wuji and Luo Shang were also in the crowd. They also recognized Mu Yu and were very surprised. Brother Luo Shang, this kid wanted to find you when you were in Lanshi City. I didn't expect him to sneak in. Do you know this person? Shimin Wuji asked. Luo Shang frowned. He didn't understand why Mu Yu didn't look for him after leaving the Moyun mountain range. Instead, he appeared here. With his strength in the Jindan period, running into a group of young talents in the nascent soul stage was simply courting death. He is my junior brother. Protect him first. Luo Shang's figure flashed and blocked in front of Beiya. Do you really know him? I thought he was joking. Shimin Wuji rolled his eyes. Although he and Luo Shang had extraordinary skills, and could easily defeat everyone present, but if so many people joined hands to deal with them, the 2 of them wouldn't be able to handle it. However, Shimin Wuji still chose to make a move without hesitation. His temperament was casual. This kid was able to tame the dragon vine, which showed that he was extraordinary. In addition, Luo Shang said that he was his junior brother, so he needed to make a move. Luo Shang, what do you mean? Beiya asked. Do you want to snatch the dragon vine? You can't touch this person, Luo Shang said. The dragon vine belongs to our million-star firm. Several people in the nascent soul stage appeared behind Beiya. The dragonized dragon vine is intelligent. If it is willing to let someone ride on its neck, it means that it recognizes this person. Luo Shang's tone was very unyielding. It seems that the dragon vine has been tamed by my brother-in-law. Shimin Wuji also appeared in front of Beiya and gracefully bowed to Beiya. Shimin Wuji, you shameless bastard. How many people have you called your brother-in-law? Mu Yu rode the dragon vine and quickly rushed to their side. He wasn't surprised that Luo Shang was willing to stand up for him. Although this cold and energetic second senior brother didn't have much interaction with him, they were still from the same sect. Especially when Feng Haochen had told them to help each other when they went out. Shimin Wuji flicked his hair and lazily said, How many people want to be my brother-in-law? I didn't agree. You are such a pretentious child. You have taken advantage of me, and yet you still want to pretend to be obedient. Chapter 173. Many people chose to wait and see. This was still floating Immortal Island's territory, so they wouldn't blatantly try to snatch the dragon vine. They also wouldn't choose to help floating Immortal Island. This was million-dollar trading company's own business. If the dragon vine left floating Immortal Island's territory, then they would have a reason to fight for it. How could Beiya agree? She was already a little upset today. It was fine if a spirit-severing stage-old monster came to snatch her things, but even a Jindan stage brat came to join in the fun. How could she endure this? Million-dollar trading company spent a lot of resources to catch this dragon vine from the mountains. It originally belonged to us. Could it be that you don't treat your wife as your family just because she was kidnapped? Mu Yu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Who would have thought that Beiya would use such a vulgar excuse? This woman was really fierce. However, this analogy clearly showed her position. The dragon vine belonged to them, and they couldn't just hand it over to someone else just because the dragon vine was taken away by someone else. I will, Shimin Wuji subconsciously said. When Muyu heard Shimin Wuji's irresponsible words, he almost fell down. Was this guy a pig? Shimin Wuji had always said whatever he wanted to say, and his mouth was faster than his brain. After he reacted, he promptly said to the onlooking female cultivators with a mischievous smile, "But for you beauties, I won't." Bah! The beauties spat at Shimin Wuji and then turned their faces away. Two out-of-body stage cultivators appeared behind Beiya. They were million-dollar trading company's patriarch Huai Baiwan and Mr. Ru. I want to see how you guys are going to walk out of floating Immortal Island today. Beiya's attitude was very tough. With her father here, this matter would be easy to handle. No matter how strong Luo Shang was, he was only a nascent soul stage cultivator. He was no match for out-of-body stage cultivators. Huai Baiwan walked forward with a smile and politely cupped his hands. This nephew must be the first person to walk out of the withered tree valley, Mu Yu. Sure enough, heroes come from the young. Many nascent soul stage cultivators couldn't walk out of the withered tree valley, but you, a Jindan stage cultivator, walked out. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Mu Yu was stunned. How did Huai Baiwan know about this? Old Tan might not even know that he had walked out of the withered tree valley, so how did he know? In other words, how did Huai Baiwan know that he was the one who walked out of the withered tree valley? What? He walked into the withered tree valley during the Jindan period? The surrounding people were shocked when they heard Huai Baiwan's words. They more or less knew what kind of place withered tree valley was. Before they came out to travel, their sex would tell them that they were not allowed to set foot in the withered tree valley, because it was impossible for nascent soul cultivators to leave that place. However, just a few days ago, a piece of news had spread like wildfire in the vicinity. A young man from the Jindan period named Mu Yu had actually obtained the heavenly demon fruit and officially became the successor of the dead tree. At first, everyone doubted the authenticity of this news. How could a person in the Jindan period do something that even a nascent soul stage cultivator could not do? But today, this sentence came from Huai Baiwan's mouth. Everyone knew what kind of person Huai Baiwan was. As a businessman, he was naturally very well informed. His words also confirmed the authenticity of this news. This kid was able to walk out of the withered tree valley and tame the dragon vine. Is this really something that a Jindan period cultivator can do? Everyone was discussing spiritedly. Everyone was curiously sizing up Mu Yu. Many people still did not believe it. Mu Yu himself did not understand how this news had spread. No wonder someone had been following him for the past few days. So this was the case. He just did not know who would do this. Could it really be Old Tan? Could it be that Old Tan was that withered tree evergreen and he was the one who released this news? But it also did not make sense. If Old Tan was withered tree evergreen, why would he let him obtain the heavenly demon fruit so easily and even let him loot his residence so happily? Wow, brother-in-law, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Shimin Wuji flew over and patted Mu Yu's shoulder. It was so painful that Mu Yu almost kicked him. How did you know? Mu Yu frowned and asked Huai Baiwan. Looking at the reaction of the people around him, some of them seemed to know about this matter, but it seemed that he was the only one who did not know. What? Nephew, you don't know it yourself? Senior Withered Tree has spread your image to the organization Silhouette Being. Now many people are looking for you. They want to catch you and bring you back to Senior Withered Tree to get the reward. Huai Baiwan said with a smile. Reward? It turned out that the people who were chasing Mu Yu these days were the so-called Silhouette Being organization. He didn't know what kind of organization the Silhouette Being was, but it seemed that they were not easy to deal with. It was really funny that he didn't even know that he was a wanted criminal. He was really lucky to be able to avoid so many people's pursuit. Then you are also chasing me? Muyu asked. Huai Baiwan laughed. Nephew, what are you talking about? Although I have been looking for you everywhere, I just want to invite you to our Fu Xian island as a guest. However, my subordinates didn't do a good job. No one could find you. I didn't expect that nephew could come in without an invitation. It really surprised me. This is your invitation. You are the first person who was invited to our Fu Xian island during the Jindan period. Huai Baiwan handed a bright red invitation card inlaid with gold to Muyu, and then said, Nephew, you are so outstanding that you can even tame the dragon vine. Then I, Huai Baiwan, will take advantage of the situation and give the dragon vine to you for free. Huai Baiwan's words caused the surrounding people to look at him with jealousy. He was really generous. The dragon vine that was worth 90 million was given away so easily. Dad, why? Beiya looked at her father making such a decision and was suddenly unhappy. However, Huai Baiwan stopped her and didn't let her continue. I am giving you the dragon vine. Whether you can protect it or not depends on your luck, Huai Baiwan said with a smile. Muyu suddenly understood what this old fox was planning. The appearance of a spirit-severing stage-old monster meant that even Huai Baiwan couldn't protect the dragon vine safely today. Muyu had so much potential, and his future was limitless. If he gave the dragon vine away, he could make Muyu owe him a favor. If Muyu became successful in the future, he could make friends with people like Muyu. Even if the dragon vine was taken away by a spirit-severing stage-old monster today, Muyu could only blame himself for not being able to protect the dragon vine. Huai Baiwan had already given it away, and he had received a favor in name. Muyu couldn't say anything wrong. Thank you, Boss Huai. Although Muyu knew about Huai Baiwan's thoughts, he couldn't say anything. Not to mention that the other party was an out-of-body stage expert. He didn't stop Muyu from leaving. This was a very good thing for Muyu. Otherwise, with Muyu's Jindan period and the strength of two nascent soul stage experts, how could he escape from Huai Baiwan? But at the same time, the trouble was not over. The few spirit-severing stage-old monsters who were still fighting didn't seem to notice that the dragon vine had escaped. No one dared to tell them about it for fear of being swept by the powerful spiritual chi fluctuations. Huai Baiwan publicly announced that he would give the dragon vine to Muyu, which meant that the surrounding nascent soul stage experts had a reason to fight for it. On the floating immortal island, they wouldn't make a move because of Huai Baiwan. But if they left the floating immortal island, then it would be a good time for them to make a move. Many young people looked at each other with a tacit understanding. Shimen Wuji might be a big trouble, and Luo Shang couldn't be underestimated. But as long as these two people were entangled, how difficult would it be to deal with Muyu during the Jindan period? In that case, we will take our leave. Muyu cupped his hands and said, I won't see you off. Huai Baiwan nodded and left with his people. Although Muyu knew that the surrounding people were eyeing him covetously, he couldn't stay here. Otherwise, it would be even more difficult for him to leave when the old monsters inside found out that something was wrong. Muyu was about to leave, and Luo Shang also followed. He knew the current situation. If his rash junior brother didn't accompany him, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to live for more than 2 hours after leaving the floating immortal island. Shimen Wuji was just there to join in the fun, so he also followed. As soon as the three of them left, many people followed. In a short time, some people had already formed an alliance to deal with the three of them. How did you run out? Those old guys at the severed soul stage couldn't have found you and escaped, right? Luo Shang looked at the people behind him. He wasn't afraid of being besieged, but he was worried that he couldn't protect his junior brother. I don't know, there was a stuttering old man who secretly helped me. Muyu felt that for the stuttering old man to be able to do this, it was certainly not simple. Unfortunately, he disappeared too quickly. Then why didn't you come to find me after leaving the Luo Chin mountain? Luo Shang asked. Mu Yu rolled his eyes. The way he left the Moyan mountain range was strange, and even he couldn't explain it. If it wasn't for Shimin Wuji saying that Luo Shang was here, he wouldn't have come here to wander. Mu Yu said, "There is an eyesore here, we have to talk in private." Shimin Wuji was unhappy. What eyesore? Brother-in-law, you haven't even crossed the river yet, and you want to burn the bridge, isn't that too unkind? Now that the enemy is in front of us, our family should be united to fight the enemy and escape. Who's your family? Today, I heard that you are going to marry some woman, and you actually dare to have ideas about Tian Ran. If it wasn't for the fact that Mu Yu needed to rely on this guy, he really didn't want to stay with this thick-skinned guy. Shimin Wuji made a helpless expression, then patted his forehead. You can't blame me for this matter. Who would have thought that my old man and Miss Meng Xian's master were already betrothed to each other before they were born? I also had no other choice, little brother-in-law, you have to believe me, I love little sister Tian Ran. Betrothed before they were born? Meng Xian is her master's daughter? Don't the women of Jade sect generally never marry? Mu Yu was greatly surprised. Meng Xian is the illegitimate daughter of my master and her master. This is a secret. Shimin Wuji said. Wait a minute, what does betrothal before they were born have to do with you? Weren't you sold to the brothel when you were 8 years old? My old man got together with Meng Xian's master. This of course has something to do with me. Is your old man referring to your dead father or your master? Of course it's my old man. Otherwise how could they be betrothed before they were born? Then aren't you and Meng Xian half-siblings? Oh no, I was wrong, my old man was referring to my master. Then what does the betrothal have to do with you? Mu Yu knew that Shimin Wuji was talking nonsense again. This person's words were really unreliable, full of loopholes, and even he couldn't justify himself. No wonder his reputation was so bad. If it was anyone else who was splashed with a bucket of dirty water like this, they would definitely explode. Fortunately, Meng Xian's master didn't hear these words, otherwise she would have chased Shimin Wuji to the ends of the earth with a knife. You two, stop talking nonsense. Be careful, we have already left floating Immortal Island. Luo Shang reminded. There were many people following behind them, keeping a distance from them. Chapter 174. This woman had long, gorgeous red hair. Her face was covered in heavy makeup, and her eyes shone with a strange red light. She wore very little clothing, revealing a large portion of her snow-white skin. Many hot-blooded young men could feel their blood boiling. They couldn't wait to press her down and do something big. Shimin Wuji was staring at the woman's long legs with infatuation. He clicked his tongue from time to time and even stretched out his hand to measure the length. He sniffed and almost had a nosebleed. Mu Yu gave Shimin Wuji a hard kick to wake him up. Does the Red Dust sect want to get involved in this mess? Luo Shang asked coldly. The Red Dust sect. She was Tian Ran's senior sister. The women of the Red Dust sect mostly wore revealing clothing. Their cultivation philosophy was different from that of the Jade sect. If the women of the Jade sect were immortal sisters, then the women of the Red Dust sect were more like women of the mundane world. The styles of these two sects were completely different. No one knew how they formed an alliance. The women of the Red Dust sect were also very beautiful. However, their beauty was a kind of enchanting beauty. Moreover, they specialized in seduction technique. Many men were dead set on them. However, Tian Ran was obviously not the same type as the woman in front of him. He really didn't know how Tian Ran could maintain such a pure personality in the Red Dust sect. Big brother, what are you saying? This little girl also wants to ride this dragon vine. This woman was called Zi Luo. She was also an invited guest of the floating fairy island. It was said that she had once killed an out-of-body stage expert with her bewitching eyes. There was definitely an element of luck involved, but she also had a certain level of strength. Shimen Wuji stepped forward and ran his hand through his hair. He elegantly said, "Riding on an animal is boring. Miss, why don't we find a secluded place and I'll let you ride on me?" Ziluo smiled charmingly. "We're both animals, but I still prefer to ride on Dragon Vine." Shimen Wuji rubbed his nose. "These words are too hurtful. I need your comfort." Shimen Wuji stepped forward and reached out to Ziluo. "Let's go." Luo Shang called out to Muyu. Luo Shang was more than enough to stall this woman. Muyu followed closely behind Luo Shang. If he was left behind, then he would be finished. "Miss, have you ever told me about my life experience?" Before Muyu left, he heard Muyu say this, which almost made Muyu fall down. This guy is so thick-skinned. Can't he come up with something new at this time? However, before they could get very far, a streak of sword light shot over. Luo Shang snorted coldly, and the burning heaven sword flew out in response, repelling the attack. He then swung his hand and sent out a streak of sword chi, forcing the person who had launched the sneak attack to reveal himself. "I let you go, but you still want to die." The one who attacked was Lu Feng, who had once been repelled by Luo Shang's 2 fingers. Luo Shang's burning heaven sword swept across, and a scorching aura swept towards Lu Feng. Lu Feng's expression changed drastically. He quickly retreated, but a jade flute blocked his path. Meng Xian looked at Luo Shang calmly. "You're very strong, but you're not our opponent." A few more men appeared beside Meng Xian. Zhu Ans of the Mystical Wood sect, Duanmu Si of the Luosha Palace. Each one of them was a famous figure, but Mu Yu didn't recognize any of them. When they stood together, they had the absolute advantage in terms of aura. "How's your falling dust sword technique?" Luo Shang asked Mu Yu. "It's all right." Mu Yu knew that as his senior brother, Luo Shang would definitely know the falling dust sword technique. He had never seen Luo Shang use the falling dust sword technique before, because this senior brother of his had used overflowing flames to deal with Mu Yu when he lost control last time, and not the falling dust sword technique. The falling dust sword technique is the most exquisite and also the most tyrannical sword technique. You must remember this point. Luo Shang's burning heaven sword shook, and he turned to look at Meng Xian and the others. His aura continued to rise, and his entire person was like a dazzling sun that bloomed, causing people's hearts to tremble. For a moment, his aura directly suppressed those people. Then, he simply slashed down with his sword. Tens of thousands of sword images flashed, and then transformed into a single sword. The red light seemed to be able to swallow the world, mountains, and rivers. It was so unstoppable. When the sword slashed down, the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. The scorching heat wave sent everyone flying. Meng Xian and the others' expressions changed slightly, and they retreated a great distance before stabilizing themselves. One of the young men couldn't dodge in time, and was directly swallowed by Luo Shang's sword chi. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. "Be careful, I'll catch up to you as soon as possible. Hurry up and leave." After saying this, Luo Shang disappeared with a biting cold killing intent. Meng Xian and the others disappeared with him, and they immediately intertwined with each other. Magic treasures shone brightly, and spiritual power violently swept out. No one dared to approach the battlefield. Run towards the forest. Mu Yu looked at this second senior brother of his, whom he had never interacted with before. The only reason he had helped him was because they were from the same sect. There was no doubt about Luo Shang's strength. Now Mu Yu had to worry about himself. The dragon vine growled. It had the strength of a nascent soul stage cultivator, and its speed wasn't any slower than the others. However, there were too many nascent soul stage cultivators on the floating celestial island, and they were all elites of the younger generation. It was also in a weakened state, so it didn't fly very far before a group of people caught up to it. The dragon vine swung its tail and violently spat out a breath at the people behind it. Then, it rushed into the forest in the distance. Those people only paused for a moment, but they quickly caught up with it. However, a dozen people appeared in front of it, blocking its path. Needless to say, these people were all nascent soul stage cultivators. One of them shot out a sharp sword chi, and the dragon vine couldn't dodge in time. Its tail was hit, and it rolled a few times before coming to a stop. I'm not interested in the dragon vine, but I want the heavenly demon fruit very much. The person who spoke was an extremely pale man. This reminded Mu Yu of Gui Xianyue from the Gate of Hell. People from the Gate of Hell had very pale skin. This person had a faint aura of death, which was completely different from Mu Yu's aura. He was definitely someone from the Gate of Hell. I've already eaten the heavenly demon fruit, and it's almost digested now. What a pity! Mu Yu grabbed the dragon vine's horn tightly and said, "You ate the heavenly demon fruit directly? Unless you're an idiot, who would believe that?" The pale man's body was filled with ghostly aura. He sneered and a red flag appeared in his hand. Fruits are meant to be eaten. Are they meant to be kicked? Mu Yu thought about it. He really did not know what the heavenly demon fruit was for. However, it was a fact that he had eaten the heavenly demon fruit. At any rate, it had been digested. If this fellow wanted more, he would have to go to the latrine. Brother Tan Rui, why are you talking nonsense with him? Just kill him. The heavenly demon fruit is definitely in his cosmos sack. Another young man took the initiative to attack. Ghost Tan Rui was a genius from the Gate of Hell. He had once fought a nascent soul stage 5th heavenly layer against a nascent soul stage 5th heavenly layer without losing. Adding on the fact that he was a twin from the Gate of Hell, many people were not willing to provoke him. Mu Yu had heard of this person from Kai Lai. This was only his past achievement. Who knew how strong he had become now? He didn't know who was stronger between Gui Tan Rui and Gui Xianyue, but no matter who was stronger, Mu Yu knew that he couldn't beat this person. Long Ting, little handsome, close your eyes. Mu Yu didn't hesitate to take out a bottle of flowing light and threw it out. The flowing light emitted a dazzling light when it was stimulated by spiritual power. Mu Yu's method of using it was wrong, but he couldn't care less. The moment he closed his eyes, the bottle in his hand exploded. Immediately, crystals flew everywhere, and a dazzling light filled the area. What is that? My eyes can't see. F***CK. Treacherous bastard. Catch him. Mu Yu's flowing light caught these people off guard. Even if they were nascent soul stage, they couldn't react in time. The intense light caused them to lose their sense of direction. Although it didn't cause them any harm, their eyes couldn't see for a moment, causing them to lose sight of Mu Yu. Long Ting took the opportunity to rush into the forest. As long as he reached the forest, Mu Yu would have a way to escape. Little Handsome had already shrunk into Mu Yu's clothes. After Mu Yu felt that he was out of the range of the flowing light, he dared to open his eyes. In front of him, there was a mass of white light that left behind a shadow. He was also affected. At this time, he was getting closer and closer to the forest. Seeing that he was about to escape, a figure blocked his way. Who are you? Mu Yu blinked his eyes hard and got rid of the shadow in front of him. The person who blocked his way was a young man in navy blue clothes. He held a sharp sword that glowed with orange light, and his whole body was suffused with sword energy. Sword Washing Valley, Slow Jian. The man named Slow Jian said faintly. Speaking of Sword Washing Valley, his tone was very proud. With the reputation of Sword Washing Valley, coupled with his unparalleled swordsmanship, he did have the capital to be proud. Sword Washing Valley? This name sounded familiar. Mu Yu thought for a moment and remembered the night when he met Pa Jian. A person named Yuan Jian claimed to be from Sword Washing Valley, but he died in the hands of Pa Jian. I remember that there is a person called Yuan Jian in your Sword Washing Valley. Mu Yu asked. Slow Jian was stunned, then he felt relieved. Senior brother Yuanjian is famous in the world. Since you know his reputation, why don't you give me Dragon Ting and Heavenly Demon Fruit? You people of Sword Washing Valley are all stupid. No wonder he died without knowing why. Mu Yu shook his head, took out a bottle and smashed it at Slow Jian. Slow Jian sneered and raised the sword in his hand. The bottle was split into two. Hiss hiss, the bottle was broken, emitting a green mist. The mist changed into a green snake and bit at Slow Jian. This was a kind of poison called resentment snake. This poison was taken from a snake venom called resentment snake. Its toxicity was very strong. The venom of the resentment snake was related to its emotions. If it died extremely unwillingly, then its snake spirit would be hidden in the snake venom. Once it encountered a person again, it would transform and attack recklessly. Even if a Yuanying stage cultivator encountered it, it would also be very difficult to escape. Mu Yu had already let the Dragon Ting stay away from the snake venom. Before the resentment snake's snake spirit completely dissipated, it was impossible for Slow Jian to break free. The strength of a resentment snake was equivalent to a nascent soul stage cultivator. In order to maximize the toxicity of the snake venom, a special method must be used to torture the resentment snake and let it die extremely unwillingly. Kid, you have some skills. After getting rid of Slow Jian, suddenly another guy with threatening sword chi appeared in front of Mu Yu. Who are you? Mu Yu grabbed a few more bottles of poison and was ready to throw them out. Sword Washing Valley, fast Jian. The man in front of him was somewhat feminine. His sword flashed with a cold light, and his aura was completely different from Slow Jian. Chapter 175. Everyone in the Cleansing Sword Valley had a sword name. Everyone needed to change the last word of their name to sword after entering the sect. Mu Yu had heard of this. In his opinion, the person who made this rule was a swordsman. He wanted others to not know about their swords. Do you want me to do it myself? Or do you want to hand over the Heavenly Demon Fruit and Dragon Vine and get lost? Quick Sword did not pay attention to Slow Sword, who was entangled by the snake of resentment. He knew that the poison would only trap Slow Sword for a while. With Slow Sword's cultivation, he would come out sooner or later. Mu Yu looked around. This escape was really too difficult. The people around him were eyeing him covetously. 7 or 8 people surrounded him. It was too difficult for Mu Yu to escape. Since he couldn't escape, then he would not escape. How about this? What you want is nothing more than the Dragon Vine and that damn Heavenly Demon Fruit. I will compete with you. If I lose, I will take out these 2 things. If I win, you get lost and don't block the way. How about it? Mu Yu looked at the others. He was now surrounded. If the other people rushed towards him, Mu Yu really had no temper at all. He had to stall for time until Shiman Wuji and Luo Shang arrived. Quick Sword laughed. Just you? A little Jindan period dares to challenge me? What? You don't dare? Mu Yu asked. I will let you use one hand. Quick Sword put his left hand behind his back, and then said to the others around him, Since this kid is so arrogant, how about you all watch the fun first? I will educate him first and let him understand that even if he is lucky enough to escape from the Withered Tree Valley, he can't be so arrogant. The people around looked at Mu Yu with ridicule. To be honest, they were not in a hurry. Quick Sword, as his name suggested, his sword was famous for its speed. Even if he only used one hand, many people present had to avoid the sharp edge. Although Mu Yu said it lightly, in fact, his heart was beating like a drum. He had experienced the strength of the nascent soul stage. At that time, Gui Xuanyue's attack made him helpless. Although his strength was not the same as before, he was still facing a nascent soul stage. Quick Sword might not be as powerful as Gui Xianyue, but he was still in the nascent soul stage. There was no way he would appear on floating immortal island for no reason. Anyone who could receive an invitation from floating immortal island was no ordinary person. The only thing Mu Yu could rely on was the sword intent given to him by the nameless swordsman. If this sword intent could not cause trouble for Quick Sword and delay the arrival of Luo Shang and the others, then today was really a bad day. See if you can locate me. Quick Sword was like a cat playing with a mouse, and his figure disappeared. His swordsmanship was fast, but his movement was even faster. He had absolute confidence that Mu Yu would not be able to detect his position. He planned to play around with Mu Yu. Mu Yu landed on the ground and told Long Ting to be on guard against others. When Mu Yu saw the fast sword disappear, his heart calmed down. Feng Haochen had once told him that there were many realms of swordsmanship, fast or slow, simple or complicated. Every sword realm had its advantages, but at the same time, its disadvantages were also obvious. If he pursued speed, then he would not be able to store energy well. His sword was sharp, but its lethality was relatively weak. If he wanted to create the most lethality with his fast sword technique, he had to get close to his opponent. Once he got close, he would expose a flaw in his defense. If he wanted to break Quick Sword, he had to kill him before his speed could cover up the flaw. 2 inches above your left shoulder, Xiao Shui reminded him. No matter how fast he would still disturb the spirit qi in the surroundings. This was more than enough for Xiao Shui to capture his opponent. Mu Yu closed his eyes. He would not doubt Xiao Shui's judgment. His shadow-splitting sword came out in response, protecting his left shoulder. With a soft ding, Mu Yu took a few steps back. His opponent's strength had decreased because of his speed. But after all, it was the strength of the nascent soul stage, and he could not completely block it. Fortunately, it did not cause fatal damage to him, because Xiao Shui gave a warning before Quick Sword attacked, giving Mu Yu time to react. Quick Sword was a little surprised by Mu Yu's reaction. However, the first sword attack was just a test, and he did not use his full strength, so he was not surprised. The center of the right chest, the knee of the right leg, the left ear, the temple. Mu Yu's reaction was fast enough, and Xiao Shui's judgment was also very accurate. He basically guessed the position of Quick Sword's attack. No matter how tricky the attack was, Mu Yu narrowly avoided it. The onlookers gradually saw that something was wrong. If it were them, they would not be able to avoid such a fast sword technique so easily. However, although Mu Yu seemed to avoid it every time, he did not suffer any substantial damage. How could they not be surprised? Quick Sword's face slowly became dignified, and he put away his playful expression. No matter how fast his attack was, Mu Yu could dodge it just right, as if his moves were seen clearly by Mu Yu. But how could this be possible? The person who could see his moves clearly must be faster than him. It was impossible for a boy in the Jindan period to be faster than him. Quick Sword, you've been entangled for so long, but you haven't even hurt him. You can't even deal with a boy in the Jindan period. What a big joke. Your reputation is ruined. Someone shouted. Quick Sword's face was very ugly. This was really a slap in the face. He was a figure that many people were afraid of, but at this moment, he couldn't even touch a boy in the Jindan period. It was a great insult to him. Mu Yu dodged Quick Sword's attack. Although he was not hurt, he could only be beaten passively. However, at this moment, he gradually evolved Quick Sword's attack movements in his mind. He gradually understood Quick Sword's way of attacking. He felt that he seemed to have the ability to retreat in order to advance and counterattack. But was this possible? Could a counterattack in the Jindan period cause damage to Quick Sword in the Yuanying period? At this moment, Quick Sword suddenly stopped. He glanced at Mu Yu coldly. If his sword technique could not kill Mu Yu, then his reputation would be ruined. His body shook, and suddenly, as if it was divided, he turned into 2 quick swords and rushed to Mu Yu in different directions. Quick's sword finally showed his special skill. Someone said secretly, and then looked at Mu Yu as if he was looking at a dead man. At the same time, he also felt sorry for Mu Yu. This kid in the Jindan period was able to force Quick's sword to show his true ability. He should be proud enough to die. Quick's sword's body technique was called shadow shifting. He could use a very high speed to create two doppelgangers to attack the enemy at the same time. He only had one real body, but he could switch between these two doppelgangers. No matter which doppelganger it was, it could cause damage to the opponent. The top of the skull, oh no, the heart. No, these two places are dangerous. Mu Yu, be careful. Xiao Shuai's judgment was correct. He knew that Mu Yu could only deal with one place even if he tried his best, and these two places were fatal. Mu Yu was in a dead end. Two doppelgangers? In front of the Heaven Sword 9 guides, he was simply asking for humiliation. Mu Yu did not panic. While the smell of death was coming, his heart was still as water. The 8th move of the Luo Chen swordsmanship, Mysterious Thunder Fall. Tao gave birth to all things, and thunder was the law. The spiritual power in the air became restless, and the spiritual power began to press against each other. Blue sparks flashed between them. The surrounding spiritual power was in chaos and constantly tearing. Then the spiritual power turned into spiritual clouds and transformed into lightning. The breath became dull, making it difficult to breathe. Mu Yu also became two people in the shocked eyes of everyone. One of his doppelgangers jumped up and led the thunder with sword chi. The doppelganger's sword in the other doppelganger's hand was already flashing with lightning and thunder. Mu Yu was not affected by the thunder and lightning, and with a pure thunder spirit, he met the two quick swords. Boom! The sword chi shot in all directions, and the sword light was everywhere. Only 4 doppelgangers were left in the field. Everyone looked at all this in disbelief. A teenager in the Jindan period was actually on par with Quick Sword of the nascent soul stage from the Sword Washing Valley. You also know the 2 sword techniques of our Sword Washing Valley? The Sword Washing Valley was furious. His every sword could not easily take down Mu Yu. Was this really something that could be done in the Jindan period? Mu Yu snorted. 2 sword techniques? What rubbish, I don't care about it. He shouted softly, and the doppelganger's sword in his hand trembled again. The third Mu Yu split out and rushed into the battlefield with the third doppelganger. What? Quick's sword was stunned. How could there be a third doppelganger? The falling dust sword technique is divided into 9 moves. Each move can turn passive into active. 9 moves and 9 doppelgangers. The highest realm is 1 into 9. 9 people against 1 person. It depends on whether you can comprehend it or not. Feng Haochen's words echoed in Mu Yu's mind. The former true god defeated 5 spirit lords Yumeng by relying on the heavenly sword 9 gravity. How could his sword technique be compared with the 2 sword techniques of the Sword Washing Valley? The 9 moves changed and depended on each other. The 9 moves could be combined into 1 move could be divided into 9 moves, and 9 moves could be divided into 81 moves. As long as the falling dust cultivation method was used properly, 1 sword could be transformed into 9 swords, and 9 swords into 81 swords. Mu Yu fell into an unprecedented state of emptiness. In his heart, there was only the doppelganger's sword in his hand. Facing a Yuanying realm practitioner, he had to be cautious. The 2 figures of Quick Sword seemed to be fixed in Mu Yu's mind. He saw every movement of Quick Sword, and what he would do next was also in Mu Yu's calculation. Attacking with a bending posture, the Zigong acupoint is wide open, which is the Achilles heel of this doppelganger. Attacking directly, the shunting acupoint is exposed, which is the Achilles heel of the other doppelganger. Even if Mu Yu knew the opponent's Achilles heel, his strength was not enough to break Quick Sword's attack. He had to rely on external forces. Mu Yu's eyes flashed, and the sword intent in his right arm surged. An explosive power filled his right arm. His arm could not completely withstand this kind of damage, so he urgently needed to guide this power out. The doppelganger sword split into two. Mu Yu twisted his waist and swung the doppelganger sword with a huge force to stab Quicksword's Zigong acupoint, while the other doppelganger sword in his hand forced Quicksword's Shinting acupoint with a force of 1,000 caddies. Quicksword was shocked. His real body was in front of Mu Yu, and he felt Mu Yu's fatal sword. He wanted to dodge, but found that Mu Yu's sword intent was stronger than his, so he could not dodge at all. He immediately changed his position to the doppelganger above him, but the doppelganger above him was also shrouded in the aura of death. No! Quicksword roared unwillingly. His chest felt cold, and he looked at his chest in disbelief. Mu Yu's doppelganger sword was directly inserted into his body, and the aura of life was quickly flowing out of his body. How is this possible? Quicksword's eyes widened. He didn't know why he was defeated by a person in the Jindan period. Why did a boy in the Jindan period have the power comparable to a person in the Yuanying period? Why could Mu Yu in the Jindan period see through his Mingmen? Why did the speed he was so proud of not hurt him at all? When Quicksword fell, his eyes were open. He died with his eyes open. A person in the Yuanying period could not hurt a cultivator in the Jindan period, and was even killed by him. This was not only a big joke, but also a great insult to him. What? The onlookers were shocked. What was going on? Why was the one lying on the ground not Mu Yu in the Jindan period, but Quicksword, who was known for his speed? Could a person in the Jindan period really kill a person in the Yuanying period? If it were them, could they get away from Quicksword so easily and kill him? Mu Yu stood there with his eyes still closed, but no one dared to underestimate him. The strength of everyone present was almost the same. It was impossible for them to kill Quicksword, but a person in the Jindan period subverted common sense and did something they could not do. If such a person was like this in the Jindan period, what if he stepped into the Yuanying period? Chapter 176. No one dared to think about what would happen if Mu Yu stepped into the Yuanying stage. These people were all here to kill Mu Yu. At this time, they had already formed a grudge against each other. If Mu Yu stepped into the Yuanying stage and wanted to take revenge one by one, no one present would be able to escape. Mu Yu's situation was not good at this time. He used the power of the broken sword. His arm was fractured and tearing pain filled his right arm. He was able to kill Quicksword by relying on Xiao Shuai's judgment and the power of the broken sword. At this moment, it was absolutely impossible for him to fight with others. He didn't want to kill Quicksword, but if he didn't kill him, he would be the one to die. However, Mu Yu was still in an ethereal state at this moment. He had been in the 9th heavenly layer of the Jindan stage for a long time. The bottleneck was like a layer of gauze. This battle made him see the gap between the Yuanying stage and the Jindan stage. He seemed to have figured out a question that had been unanswered for a long time. The spiritual power in his body was undergoing essential changes. His damaged tendons and veins were quickly recovering, and his momentum was constantly rising. He's going to break through to the Yuanying stage. Kill him! Shi Yun of the Danding sect suddenly shouted, shouting out everyone's thoughts. Everyone present could see what had happened to Mu Yu, and each of them had experienced it. No one expected that a battle would give Mu Yu the opportunity to break through. At this moment, Slow Sword also broke free from Mu Yu's snake venom. When he saw Quicksword being killed by Mu Yu, his eyes suddenly burst with anger. Quicksword and Slow Sword came from the same sect. They were the peerless twins of the Shijin Valley. The most powerful thing about them was not their individual strength, but their cooperation. Who would have thought that Quicksword would be killed by a person in the Jindan period today? This was equivalent to crippling the peerless twins. How could he bear it? Boy, give me back my junior brother's life. Slow Sword took the lead. His swordsmanship was slow, but it was heavy and powerful, forming a sharp contrast with Quick Sword. But even if it was slow, it was fast enough for Mu Yu during the Jindan period. However, Mu Yu was still immersed in his own world. He was on the verge of a breakthrough and did not notice what was happening outside. He did not know how many people were trying to take his life at this moment. Dragon Vine roared angrily and used its huge body to crash into Slow Sword. At the same time, it spat out a domineering dragon's breath at him. Slow Sword slashed apart the dragon breath and kicked Dragon Vine's body. Dragon Vine cried out in pain and fell back. The Dragon Vine flew in the direction of Mu Yu. It couldn't dodge in time and crashed into Mu Yu. Mu Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. The world he comprehended suddenly collapsed. His entire being sank into boundless darkness. He didn't know where he was. He only felt that he was constantly falling into a bottomless abyss. He felt that something in his body seemed to have broken free from his control. He didn't have any extra energy to suppress it. Yun watched as Mu Yu was sent flying, but his gaze fell on Dragon Vine. He was an alchemist of the Danding sect. Dragon Vine had an incomparable allure to him. Whether Mu Yu died or not had nothing to do with him. Obtaining Dragon Vine was the most important thing. He did not hesitate to rush towards Dragon Vine. Not only him, but others also rushed towards the injured Dragon Vine. So what if we kill the cultivators? If the cultivators were all dead, there wouldn't be so much trouble. They are greedy. They want whatever they see and snatch it. The existence of cultivators is a stain on this world. Mu Yu heard a voice saying these words in his mind. That voice seemed to be very happy to see Mu Yu become like this. Mu Yu was very confused. He didn't know what he was doing now. He felt that his consciousness was no longer controlling his body. Spirit Lord Yu Meng in his body was actually beginning to stir. Mu Yu's body fell heavily. Little Shuai grabbed Mu Yu's back collar and used all his strength to fly in the air. Only then did he not let Mu Yu fall too badly. However, Little Shuai was after all small in size. The impact of Dragon Vine was so strong that it was unable to offset it. Mu Yu was smashed into the ground, creating a huge pit. You killed my junior brother. You deserve to die. Slow Sword roared and once again raised his sword to attack Mu Yu. Mu Yu, are you okay? Quickly wake up. That guy is coming again. Little Shuai checked Mu Yu's injuries and found that the fracture of Mu Yu's right arm had healed. There were no injuries on his body. However, there seemed to be some changes on Mu Yu's body. These changes were quite strange. His aura had also changed. It seemed that he was no longer the Mu Yu it was familiar with. This made Little Shuai somewhat at a loss. Slow Sword's sword pierced Mu Yu's heart. He had already imagined Mu Yu's fate of falling to the ground. Thinking that he could avenge his junior brother, his face revealed a trace of ferocity. However, he couldn't be happy. His junior brother's death was not only an insult to him, but also an insult to his own sect. No one would say anything if he died in the hands of a Yuanying stage expert. However, if he died in the hands of a little Jindan period expert, their sword-cleansing valley would probably be ridiculed for a lifetime. Mu Yu suddenly opened his eyes. His left eye was filled with white light, while his right eye was flickering with black light. A strange Bodhi pattern was faintly discernible on his arm. Mu Yu stretched out his hand and directly grabbed Slow Sword's sword. Slow Sword was shocked. He suddenly found that he could no longer move forward. How was this possible? Slow Sword's swordsmanship was not as weak as Quick Sword's. His sword was heavy and had a great impact. Even if he wanted to catch it himself, he might not be able to grab it. However, this Jindan period kid actually grabbed his sword? Slow Sword wanted to withdraw his sword, but he couldn't do it. His opponent's strength was so strange that Slow Sword couldn't pull it out. Let the slaughter of cultivators begin with you. The corner of Mu Yu's mouth rose, revealing a strange smile. He stretched out his hand and the shadow-splitting sword fell into his hand. At this time, the shadow-splitting sword had changed into a Mu Ling sword that was full of holes as if it had been eaten by insects. Slow Sword felt a strong killing intent lock onto him. It was as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His whole body was cold. He didn't hesitate to let go of his sword. He stepped on the ground with the tip of his foot and pulled away from Mu Yu. I'll take your blood and let Mu Ling use it. Mu Yu looked at the tattered wooden sword in his hand and gently stroked it. It was as if he was greeting an old friend that he hadn't seen for a long time. The wooden sword's body trembled, as if it was excited to meet again after a long time. You can't escape. Mu Yu's figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already behind Slow Sword. His voice made Slow Sword feel the call of the Grim Reaper. Slow Sword had never heard such a tone. It was clearly mixed with infinite vitality, like a surging river, but it also carried endless killing intent, as if it made his soul tremble. Slow Sword still wanted to struggle to escape from this murderous aura, but he felt a pain in his neck, and then his whole body fell into nothingness. His thoughts were gradually fading away, and there was only darkness in front of him. He actually saw his own body falling down. It was a very strange feeling. Before he died, he actually saw his own headless body. He was unwilling to accept this and wanted to shout loudly, but he found that he couldn't speak. Slow Sword's head was separated from his body in front of so many people. It soared into the sky and then fell heavily on the ground in the distance. His body fell from mid-air and crashed into the ground with a dull thud. The peerless prides of the sword-cleansing valley died just like that? Everyone looked at the headless corpse on the ground in disbelief. No one could imagine that a person in the Jindan period could actually kill 2 Yuanying stage cultivators in succession. No matter which one of the peerless prides was the leader of the younger generation. The people present may be able to defeat them one-on-one, but absolutely no one dared to say that they had the chance to kill them. However, Mu Yu actually did it. What was the origin of this Mu Yu? Was he a human or a ghost? Mu Yu looked at the wood spirit sword in his hand. The blood on the blade slowly seeped into the body of the sword. A small hole in the body of the sword was slowly closing. The body of the sword emitted a strange green light. The power of the sword was slowly increasing. The blood of so many people should be able to repair you a little, right? Mu Yu looked up and licked his lips as if he had tasted something delicious. The killing intent on his body was getting stronger and stronger, and had already covered everyone. Let's go. Everyone who was swept by Mu Yu felt as if they were being stared at by a poisonous snake. Their hearts trembled and they immediately wanted to leave without hesitation. However, Mu Yu had already appeared behind a person. Mu Ling's sword penetrated that person's chest. Blood sputtered out like a fountain. That person unwillingly opened his eyes wide. He bent his hand as if he wanted to grab something, but his body was powerless and drooped down. The other 6 people saw how fast Mu Yu killed people, and their hearts suddenly became cold. Can't kill people, however, at this time, the light in Mu Yu's eyes gradually disappeared. His eyes regained a trace of clarity, but soon they were covered by black and white light. The light in his eyes flickered as if he was trying his best to seize control of Mu Yu's body. Our mission is to kill the cultivators. No, it's not. Cultivators exist for a reason. You should obediently go back. This is my body. You idiot. Mercy is the death of us. Can't you see that they want to kill you? If they want to kill me, I will kill them myself. I don't need you to control my body. Mu Yu hugged his head and cried out in pain. Then, he fell to the ground. He curled up his body and kept rolling. The 2 consciousnesses in his body were fighting with each other. Dragon Ting, who was at the side, was already entangled by Shi Yun and the others. He kept roaring. Mu Yu's shouts attracted everyone. Dragon Ting took the opportunity to break free. He tried his best to rush to Mu Yu's side and used his huge body to protect Mu Yu. The 6 nascent soul stage cultivators did not expect that Mu Yu, who was shrouded in the aura of death at the beginning, would become like this in the blink of an eye. They stopped and looked at each other in bewilderment. They read a common thought from each other's eyes. Kill him. Yun took out his magical equipment and mercilessly attacked Mu Yu. The others also had the idea of strangling Mu Yu in the cradle. They raised the magical equipment in their hands. They did not intend to leave Mu Yu a way out. These nascent soul stage cultivators actually disregarded everything and tried to kill Mu Yu, who was in the Jindan period. It was because the terrifying aura that Mu Yu had just displayed had affected their lives. They were not willing to wait for Mu Yu to step into the nascent soul stage in the future and come back to seek revenge. At this moment, a cold snort sounded. A hand appeared in the void. That hand was like a ghost. It carried an insufferably arrogant aura and easily shattered the magical equipment of those people. With a slight wave, those people were sent flying while vomiting blood. At the same time, they were already dead, including Yun from the Pill Cauldron sect. This hand actually killed several nascent soul stage cultivators in an instant. Chapter 177. It had been 2 months since the chaos on the floating immortal island. In the past month, the world of cultivators had been in an uproar. There had been a rumor that a young genius named Mu Yu had become the biggest winner of the floating immortal island incident with his strength during the Jindan period. He was the first person to walk out of the infamous Withered Tree Valley and sneaked into the floating immortal island where nascent soul stage cultivators gathered. He tamed a dragon vine and escaped from the floating immortal island with the dragon vine when the nascent soul stage cultivators tried to snatch the dragon vine. He had a dispute with the nascent soul stage cultivators outside the floating immortal island. Under heavy siege, he killed 9 nascent soul stage cultivators with his strength during the Jindan period and then disappeared. No one would have thought that a guy during the Jindan period would have such a heaven-defying ability. He was able to fool people who were dozens of times stronger than him. In the end, he even managed to hide himself. Many people who wanted to find trouble with him were helpless. Tea houses were always the places with the widest sources of information. Many cultivators liked to exchange some news in the world of cultivators while they were resting, and Mu Yu's deeds were undoubtedly the most talked about news. In a tea house in a small town on the edge of the floating immortal island, 2 cultivators were leisurely talking about some things. As expected, the topic turned to Mu Yu, who had disappeared. "Have you heard of Mu Yu? Who hasn't heard of Mu Yu, who has been the talk of the town recently? I don't know where he has escaped to. No one has found him after so long. Everyone is saying that it was Withered Tree Evergreen who saved him. I wonder if it's true or not. Withered Tree Evergreen didn't save him. He is still looking for the young man named Mu Yu everywhere. Why is Withered Tree Evergreen looking for him? I heard that he robbed Withered Tree Evergreen's residence when he was out. He stole a lot of precious things and left the Withered Tree Valley. Think about who Withered Tree Evergreen is. How can his things be taken so easily? Do you think he won't look for this kid? This kid is really heaven-defying. It was also Evergreen who ordered the silhouette being to hunt down Mu Yu, right? Does anyone know where he came from? I don't know. It is said that this brat knows 2 sword techniques from the Sword Cleansing Valley, but there is no such person in the Sword Cleansing Valley. He even killed the 2 peerless prides of the Sword Cleansing Valley. Deadwood Evergreen denied that he had saved Mu Yu. A person like him wouldn't lie, right? The 9 youths he killed this time are not simple. The Dan Cauldron School's Yun is dead. Yun is also a 4th-rank alchemist. The death of an alchemist from the Dan Cauldron School is a huge loss. The two brothers, Fast Sword and Slow Sword, who are known as the twin prides of Sword Cleansing Valley, were also not spared. It is a pity that they died. This Mu Yu has offended two major powers in the cultivation world. I'm afraid he won't dare to show his face in public for a while. A lot of people have died in the Sword Cleansing Valley recently. Just a few days ago, someone discovered the corpse of the sword god's successor, Yuan Jian. It was said that the nameless swordsman killed him. That's right. Now the entire Sword Cleansing Valley is furious. They are crazily looking for the nameless swordsman and Mu Yu. It's a pity that we don't know what this person called Mu Yu looks like. We don't have his portrait. Similar conversations occurred in every tea house and inn. 2 months had passed and no one knew the whereabouts of Mu Yu. The rare dragon vine was also missing. Everyone wanted to find the whereabouts of Mu Yu. There were even people who went to the Withered Tree Valley to seek confirmation, but they were all driven out by Deadwood Evergreen. At this time, the Withered Tree Valley was filled with poison. Even out-of-body stage cultivators found it difficult to enter. The people of the Sword Cleansing Valley also went to find Deadwood Evergreen. They believed that Deadwood Evergreen was shielding Mu Yu. However, Deadwood Evergreen was not a person to be trifled with. He was temperamental and his cultivation was unfathomable. He immediately sent the people of the Sword Cleansing Valley away. Shimen Wuji and Luo Shang quietly listened to the discussion of the two cultivators. The two of them were also looking for Mu Yu, especially Luo Shang. It was reasonable to say that Luo Shang didn't have any feelings for this junior brother of his. The reason why Luo Shang cared so much about Mu Yu was because of Mu Yu's ability, which was similar to Luo Shang's ability. This brat has caused us to be miserable. Shimen Wuji shook his head. When Luo Shang was surrounded by several people, he heavily injured Lone Fiend's Sex Flowing Wind. When he broke through the encirclement to find Mu Yu had already disappeared. Shimen Wuji's strength was higher than Zi Luo. After restraining Zi Luo, he still had time to drag her into the forest and do some shameful things with her. At this moment, Zi Luo was flustered and exasperated, carrying her sword and looking for him all over the world. Luo Shang was concerned about another matter. He was sure that Mu Yu had used the power of Spirit Lord Mu Yumeng that day. This kind of power was unstable. If he was slightly careless, he would never wake up. Once he lost control, the disaster would be unimaginable. What he was most worried about now was that Mu Yu had already been dominated by Spirit Lord Mu Yumeng, causing his whereabouts to be unknown. The whole world was looking for Mu Yu, but Mu Yu seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. He was playing a game of hide-and-seek with people. It wasn't that Mu Yu didn't want to come out, but he couldn't come out at this moment. Mu Yu was indeed rescued by Deadwood Evergreen. Deadwood Evergreen was the stuttering old man who had guided Mu Yu to escape. At this moment, Mu Yu was lying unconscious in the Deadwood Valley. His aura was very chaotic. Even little Shuai was helpless. Little mouse. Big earthworm. Little mouse. Big earthworm. Little Shuai and Long Ting were cursing each other outside the celestial demon tree. Little Shuai's food had long run out. He no longer gnawed on chicken legs every day. Instead, he quarreled with Long Ting. These two idiots only knew these two sentences. The more they cursed, the more energetic they became. They always said these two sentences back and forth. After Deadwood rescued Mu Yu, he didn't care about Little Shuai and Long Ting. Every day, he would disappear from time to time. Recently, there were always many experts who came to harass him, but they were all sent away by Deadwood. After 2 months of recovery, Long Ting's spirit was much better. It still had the strength of the nascent soul stage. Every day, it hovered on the bridge under the celestial demon tree, competing with Little Shuai. Deadwood didn't allow them to leave here, so they could only quarrel to relieve their boredom. After an unknown period of time, the chaotic aura on Mu Yu's body finally began to calm down. He opened his eyes, which were filled with confusion. His last memory was that he was fighting with a large group of nascent soul cultivators, and then Spirit Lord Yumeng, who was inside his body, came to interfere. He looked at the surrounding layout and found it a little familiar. He looked at the luminous pearl on the ceiling and immediately remembered that he seemed to have returned to Deadwood's room. Why am I here? Was I captured by Deadwood? Mu Yu rolled off the bed and tried to open the door, but found that it was sealed. But this was not a problem for him. He directly blended into the tree and went outside. Wow. Mu Yu, you're finally awake? That's great. Quick, we have to go buy drumsticks. Little Shuai was so happy that it danced. Are you okay? Long Ting was not as heartless as Little Shuai. It was very concerned about Mu Yu's situation. After all, it was Mu Yu who saved it from those people. We can't stay here for long. Let's run. We robbed someone last time. He caught us and skinned us. Mu Yu remembered what he had done and quickly jumped on Long Ting's neck, urging it to fly. Long Ting didn't fly. It whispered, "Little mouse and I have tried many times. We can't fly out. Let's try again. We'll use the celestial demon tree to escape." Mu Yu said. None of you can escape." Just as Mu Yu was about to take Long Ting into the celestial demon tree, the stuttering old man strangely appeared in front of Mu Yu. "Stuttering old man, it's you. Why are you here? Were you also captured by Deadwood Chongqing? Let's go, I'll take you out." Mu Yu said very kindly. He still remembered that it was this stuttering old man with green hair who saved him from the hands of those spirit-severing cultivators. He thought that this old man was also captured here. Little Shuai pulled Mu Yu's clothes and whispered, "This stuttering old man is Deadwood Chongqing." "What?" Mu Yu widened his eyes and smiled uneasily. "What a coincidence! Today's weather is so sunny." Deadwood Chongqing snorted. He took a deep breath and said, "You stole my things last time. You have to pay the price." Deadwood paused every 2 words. It was just a few simple words. When Mu Yu understood, it felt like hundreds of years had passed. "Old man, can't you speak more straightforwardly? It's so unbearable to listen to every single one of them." Mu Yu yawned and picked his ears. "I'll return all the things I took last time to you, okay? Can we go now?" "No," Deadwood said. "Then what do you want?" Mu Yu scratched his head. He was not used to returning to this depressing place. "Master." 2 words suddenly popped out of Deadwood's mouth. "I'm not your master." Mu Yu thought he heard wrong and quickly shook his hand. "You are so powerful, I can't be your master." "I am. You are my disciple," Deadwood said angrily. He wanted to use simple words to explain, but it was obviously not successful. "Disciple? You want to be my disciple?" "Oh, I don't accept disciples." Mu Yu smiled and was a little embarrassed. "I want to accept you as my disciple. I want to be your master, understand? If you tease me again, I will hang you up." Deadwood suddenly finished his words smoothly. You're not stuttering again? Is your stuttering faked? You should have said it earlier. Otherwise, I'm tired of listening." Mu Yu shrugged. Deadwood looked at Mu Yu with some anger. He didn't know whether Mu Yu did it intentionally or unintentionally, but he kept talking about Deadwood's stuttering. You are now my disciple." Deadwood tried to calm his emotions. Why are you stuttering again? You stutter one moment and then you don't stutter the next. What's going on?" Mu Yu asked strangely. "Scram. If you talk about my stuttering again, I will cripple you." Deadwood squinted his eyes and said fiercely. Mu Yu flinched. This strange old man was really temperamental. Why did he suddenly curse? However, if the other party wanted to kill him, Mu Yu would have already been reduced to ashes. At least for now, he was still safe. He felt that this old man was a little interesting. He couldn't speak clearly and couldn't express his meaning clearly. Once he got angry, he could suddenly speak smoothly. He was really a strange person. In fact, those who knew Deadwood and Chongqing knew that Deadwood had a natural speech defect. Therefore, every time he spoke, he would speak 2 words at a time so that he wouldn't stutter. However, when he spoke 2 words, he would pause. Sometimes, he would take a long time to express a sentence clearly. No one was willing to listen to him finish speaking. This caused his character to be very antisocial and he didn't like to talk. Once someone talked about his stuttering, he would be very angry. And when he was angry, his speech would become smooth, no different from a normal person. Every time, those who were about the same cultivation level as him would deliberately provoke him so that they could communicate normally. However, there was a price to pay for provoking him. Sometimes it would cause him to turn around and leave, not giving you a chance to speak again. Therefore, to judge whether Deadwood was angry or not, one only needed to see whether he stuttered or not. Muyu also slowly understood these things later. However, every time he communicated with Deadwood, he would almost be angered to death. Therefore, Deadwood was able to express his meaning completely. Chapter 178. No, I already have a master. I can't take you as my master anymore, Muyu said without hesitation. If other people in the cultivation world knew about Muyu's resolute attitude, they would definitely point at Muyu and scold him for being shameless. How many people were lining up to take Ku Mu as their master? Yet, this brat directly rejected them. Unfortunately, they didn't know who Muyu's master was. If they knew about the relationship between the true god of the third continent and Muyu, they wouldn't think this way. Even though Ku Mu's cultivation was unfathomable, how could Ku Mu compare to the true god of the third continent? Who is your master? I'll go and kill him. Then you can take me as your master, Ku Mu said angrily. He was quite angry that he wasn't willing to take him as his disciple. Although I know that I'm talented and many people want to be my master, it's not good to fight and kill, right? What do you see in me? I'll change, okay? Muyu wouldn't betray his master, of course. No one would believe him even if he said it. Who would believe that his master was the true god of the third continent? Ku Mu looked at Muyu as if he was thinking about something. His anger hadn't subsided yet. After a while, he frowned and said, "Your swordsmanship is very similar to someone. Your master is Jian Ing Chinfeng, right?" Muyu was startled. F***ck. Could it be that this old man was acquainted with his master? Feng Haochen had made a name for himself back then, and made everyone know about him. Once he became famous, his interpersonal relationships became very complicated. Muyu didn't know whether this old man in front of him was friend or foe. Muyu said, "Senior, how can you say that I'm the true god's successor based on my swordsmanship alone? That's not very good, right? Besides, the true god is such a great person. He's handsome and elegant. Although he's a little like me, but he's called Feng Haochen now, right?" Ku Mu interrupted Muyu. Muyu was shocked. Very few people knew that the true god lived in seclusion in the Moyun Mountains. Even the people of the 8 Gates did not know about it. The Gate of Hell only knew about it because Tian Ran leaked it. How did Evergreen know about it? Last time, the people from the Gate of Hell were prepared to make a move on Feng Haochen because they knew about this. If Evergreen had the same idea, wouldn't it be very dangerous? Then everyone will be happy. You and my master are old friends, right? Did you guys get to know each other by drinking or by sparring? Muyu said with a grin. He wanted to sound out the good side first. Enemies, Ku Mu said. Muyu's smile froze. What the hell was this? So it turned out to be one of his master's enemies. Could he be any more unlucky? Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Unfortunately, Muyu bumped into him. You're treating me like an outsider by calling me an enemy. We're all so old. What unhappy things can't withstand the passing of time, right? How about this, you let me go back. I'll find my master and persuade him to bury the hatchet. How about that? Mu Yu said with a grin, but he was secretly complaining in his heart. Ku Mu knew that Jian Ing Chen Feng was a true divinity of the third layer of the continent. However, Ku Mu didn't shy away from calling him an enemy. He didn't put a true divinity in his eyes at all. How could someone who could become an enemy of a true divinity be so simple? I know that he has no cultivation now. Your master hasn't made any progress. He hasn't even reached the nascent soul stage, and he dares to let you out to bite people. Since he won't teach you, I'll teach you in the future. Ku Mu finished speaking and walked toward his treehouse angrily. Mu Yu blinked. He thought that this old man would fiercely slap him to vent his anger. He didn't expect that he would leave after saying these words. It seemed that he didn't want to stay with Mu Yu for a moment longer. What do you mean by let you out to bite people? What you said is too hurtful. Mu Yu rolled his eyes. He didn't dare to chase after him and question him. He just waved his fist behind him. Mu Yu didn't want to enter that treehouse again. He took the dragon vine and jumped into the celestial demon tree. He wanted to run out from the same path as last time. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed. There was a restriction on it. He went in the direction of the valley again, but he still failed. Can you talk about letting me out? I can't. Mu Yu was inexplicably imprisoned in this valley. He gloomily stared at the celestial demon tree. Ku Mu was inside the celestial demon tree at this moment. He didn't know what he was doing. He tried all the methods, but unfortunately, Ku Mu wasn't someone to be trifled with. He basically blocked all the paths. At night, Mu Yu lay on the bridge and slept. His universe creator was forcibly opened by Ku Mu. The things that Mu Yu snatched were all taken back. Fortunately, the quilt was still there. Mu Yu slept soundly with the dragon vine and little Shuai under the quilt. Early the next morning, Ku Mu was picked up by Ku Mu Chongqing. Ku Mu Chongqing was unhappy to see Mu Yu using his quilt. Recite the Poison Sutra, Ku Mu Chongqing said stiffly. Can I go out after I memorize it? Mu Yu took the thick Poison Sutra. It had hundreds of pages. It was all Ku Mu Chongqing's experience in refining poisons. He didn't know how free Ku Mu Chongqing was to write such a thick book. Cultivators didn't mean that everyone had a photographic memory. It would take him years to memorize so much. No, Ku Mu said succinctly. Then I won't memorize it. Mu Yu handed the Poison Sutra to Ku Mu. Ku Mu didn't take it. He just glanced at the dragon vine on the bridge and said, No, dragon vine, refine the medicine. How about we make the big earthworm suffer? Little Shuai said. Mu Yu held his chin. Of course, he couldn't accept this suggestion. Dragon Vine had gone through thick and thin with him. He wouldn't burn the bridge after crossing it. Big Rat, why don't you go refine the medicine? Dragon Vine shouted at Little Shuai. You're older. You can refine more medicine, Little Shuai said. Mu Yu shook his head and said pitifully, Can I memorize it every day? Memorize and recite, Ku Mu said unquestionably. Memorize and recite. These 5 dry words were a pain in many people's hearts. What was the use of memorizing so many words? However, Mu Yu didn't have the ability to resist. So, every day, Mu Yu's unwilling and lifeless voice echoed throughout the valley. Tiger Vine, Pharmacology. I really don't want to memorize it. Effect. It can restore a man's masculinity. This is not bad. 2 or 3 tails can cause death. Opportunity and risk coexist. Mu Yu recited it like this to relieve his boredom for a few days. In order to make the dry words not so monotonous, he added his own unique opinion on each herb. He suddenly understood why Kai Lai wanted to scribble on the book. Such a boring book made Mu Yu want to scribble on the hand-drawn illustrations of the herbs in the book into the image of a person. He secretly used cinnabar to carve the formation patterns as paint and specially redrew the illustration of the dragon vine in the Poison Sutra. Look, that green-haired old man has drawn you into a big earthworm. Little Shuai pointed at the dragon vine in the Poison Sutra and mocked him. The dragon vine stared at him with its bell-sized eyes and growled, indicating Muyu to change it quickly. Don't worry, don't worry. Old man Kumu didn't study painting seriously when he was young. His painting skills are too bad. I call him the little prodigy of painting. Muyu worked hard to scribble on the original painting. He used all kinds of cinnabar and even measured the size of the dragon vine and reduced it accordingly. Originally, the green-haired old man only drew a big earthworm. Muyu, you changed it into a big centipede. Little Shuai held his stomach and laughed. The dragon vine was so angry that it swallowed Little Shuai. Nonsense, this painting really reproduces the lifelike four legs of the dragon vine. Look at the dragon's whiskers. Muyu pointed at the dragon's whiskers that looked like a hemp rope and decided not to comment. He continued, and the two horns. The two horns on the painting were not harmonious. His hand shook halfway and it even bent a little. He was a little embarrassed to continue. What are you doing? Painting, of course. Muyu picked up the branch and prepared to change it again. However, he immediately realized that something was wrong. The dead tree actually came. Before he could explain, his whole body was already hanging upside down in the air, swinging in the air. Let me down! Muyu shouted. The dead tree's eyes were about to spit out fire. He flipped through the poison scripture and found that many pages were stuffed with ugly graffiti. He even saw his own portrait on one of the pages. The portrait made his eyes and nose slanted. Those are my painstaking efforts. Little brat, do you want to die? The dead tree's heart was almost dripping blood. He stopped stuttering, indicating that he was angry. Just keep your painstaking efforts. Why do you have to make me memorize it? Muyu protested. You don't know what's good for you. The dead tree was so angry that his eyes widened. If the poison scripture was spread to the cultivation world, it would be a treasure that would cause many people to kill each other. This little brat actually dared to ruin it like this. The dragon vine had already run far away, fearing that it would be refined by the angry dead tree. Little Handsome tried his best to crawl out from the gap between the dragon vine's teeth. The dead tree's chest heaved up and down as he said, If it was someone else, I would have already killed him. Little brat, you took advantage of me and still acted innocent. Muyu didn't say anything. He indeed felt that he was a bit excessive and said, Senior, but rote memorization can't make a great talent. The dead tree looked at Muyu as if he thought of something and said, So many people came to me to be my master, but I didn't like them. Do you know why I chose you? Because I'm handsome? Little Handsome interrupted from the side. The dead tree glanced at Little Handsome. Little Handsome quickly crawled back into the dragon vine's mouth. The dragon vine spat out Little Handsome. Because I'm your enemy's disciple? Muyu didn't struggle anymore. He was hanging upside down in the air and couldn't come down. He could only accept his fate and said, You want to instigate the enemy's disciple? Let me tell you that's impossible. I can't betray my master. You'd better die. Because you want to save your Jian Ing Chun Feng. The dead tree stared at Muyu. Muyu stopped and also looked at the dead tree. He indeed wanted to save his master, but how did the dead tree know this? I know far more than you can imagine. You want to save him, and only I can help you. The dead tree's expression was very ugly. When he said these words, there was a trace of disgust. He felt that his decision was an insult to his dignity. Why do you want to save my master? Muyu asked, puzzled. To tell the truth, I really want to kill him, but he can't die. There's one thing I still need him to do. The dead tree clenched his fists. Is it about Yu Meng? Muyu asked. It has nothing to do with Yu Meng. In short, if you want to save your master, you have to follow my arrangements. If you don't want to, you can leave now." The dead tree waved his hand and Mu Yu fell down. He turned around and returned to his treehouse. Mu Yu landed on the ground and directly soared into the air. He discovered that the restrictions of the valley had been removed. He came out of the valley, and Dragon Vine and Little Handsome followed him out. They didn't understand why the dead tree suddenly became so easy to talk to. Chapter 179. Mu Yu didn't leave, he chose to stay. Even if he went to find Luo Shang now, it would be useless. Luo Shang and the others couldn't save Feng Haochen, and Mu Yu would only be immersed in cultivation. It would be a fool's dream to fight against the mysterious threefold palace. Withered Tree Evergreen was a very mysterious person. His cultivation was so high that he could take Mu Yu's life with a sneeze. However, not only did he know Mu Yu's identity, but he also secretly rescued Mu Yu from floating Immortal Island. For an unknown purpose, he wanted to take Mu Yu as his disciple. Even though Withered Tree Evergreen kept saying that he and Feng Haochen had an irreconcilable hatred, Mu Yu always felt that this strange old man didn't want Feng Haochen to die. Instead, he wanted to save him. Heavenly demon fruits use? This was the first sentence Withered Tree said to Mu Yu every day. The heavenly demon fruit is a kind of all-purpose herb. When you can't find a certain herb when refining a pill, you can cut a small piece of the heavenly demon fruit as a substitute. It can better dissolve the resistance between various herbs, allowing them to be perfectly combined. The heavenly demon tree only bears 2 fruits every 100 years. It's very rare. Mu Yu said a long paragraph of words with extreme guilt. He felt guilty because Withered Tree told him that if he wanted Feng Haochen to live, he had to restore his dantian. Feng Haochen became the array core of the immortal confining prison at the cost of his cultivation. His dantian was severely damaged, which caused his cultivation to drop. Using the 9 Qi Soul cleansing flower and the underworld grass to refine the first essence yang restoration pill, Feng Haochen's dantian could be restored. Withered Tree originally wanted to use the heavenly demon fruit as a replacement because this flower only existed in ancient records and was now extinct. However, the heavenly demon fruit ended up in Mu Yu and Xiao Shuai's stomachs, and Bai Liang was wasted. You need to find these 2 on your own. As for where to find them, I will tell you later. This was what the dead tree said when he was angry, because neither of these 2 were easy to find. Mu Yu had no other choice now. Not only did Kumu teach him the Poison Sutra, he also taught him some knowledge about Xian formations. Dead Tree's understanding of formations was quite thorough. When Mu Yu said that his master was also proficient in formations, Dead Tree showed a trace of disdain. His kind of formations are not worth mentioning. As soon as the Dead Tree mentioned Mu Yu's master, his face was full of contempt and ridicule. He really didn't know how the true gods of the 3 continents had offended this green-haired old man. He was always belittled as if he was nothing. Mu Yu decided not to refute. The grudges of the previous generation had nothing to do with him. Xian formations was just some simple knowledge about formations recorded by Ku Mu. It wasn't very profound, but it was enough to broaden Mu Yu's horizons. Feng Haochen had never taught him about formations because of some misgivings. However, he didn't have anything to worry about with Ku Mu. When Ku Mu explained Xian formations to Mu Yu, he spoke word by word. After Mu Yu finished listening to the introduction of Xian formations, he felt like he had aged forever. However, he still learned a lot in the end. For example, in the history of formations there were smart people who used the arrangement of the constellations in the sky to set up formations. The method of using cultivators to replace the constellations was almost unimaginable when dealing with Yu Meng. Ku Mu explained the most basic 8 trigrams formation to him. Mu Yu only had a rough understanding of the 8 trigrams formation from Elder Sun, but Ku Mu directly let Mu Yu understand the deeper level of the 8 trigrams formation. In order to let Mu Yu remember the positions of the 8 trigrams and what they represented, Ku Mu Yu purposely created an 8 trigrams formation that was guarded by demonic beasts. Mu Yu, on the other hand, had stepped directly into the death gate of the 8 trigrams and was almost eaten by an out-of-body flood dragon. Since then, he had lost interest in the 8 trigrams array. Mu Yu had come into contact with a lot of formations so far. From the mountain protection formation that could withstand nascent soul stage cultivators, to the heaven and earth formation that trapped the entire Moyen mountain range, to the teleportation formation that Yu Meng used to escape from the immortal confining prison, each of these formations had their own merits, and each formation was quite powerful. The formations that Ku Mu and Chong Qing set up in the valley were also very mysterious. For example, the Ghost Labyrinth formation was solved by Mu Yu's cleverness. He had come into contact with a lot of formations, but he couldn't understand the rules behind them. Now that he suddenly met Ku Mu and Chong Qing, who were very knowledgeable about formations, he couldn't help but want to learn about formations. However, Ku Mu seemed to want Mu Yu to focus on the Poison Sutra. He already knew that Mu Yu had the ability of Spirit Lord Yu Meng in his body, so he thought that understanding the characteristics of various herbs would be more helpful for Mu Yu to find the 9-Chi soul-cleansing flower and netherworld herb in the future. Therefore, Mu Yu could only follow Ku Mu's wishes to learn about all kinds of strange plants and test the effects of mixing different kinds of plants together. It was funny. He was a person who could control plants, but his knowledge of plants was not as good as Ku Mu and Chong Qing. You are, Ku Mu reminded Mu Yu when he suddenly realized that Mu Yu had added a few extra herbs while guiding him to mix his 100 poison powder. I know it's wrong, I know. I just want to know what fun effects these few herbs will have when added together. Mu Yu said indifferently. Boom. Mu Yu already knew the effects of this combination. His face was covered in dirt from the explosion of the herbs, and a few blisters appeared on his face. Half of his face was swollen. The 100 poison powder used all kinds of poisons. Mu Yu's reckless experiment was just looking for trouble. Mu Yu screamed and rushed into the celestial demon tree to detoxify the poison. Ku Mu's face revealed a smile that was hard to hide. Mu Yu realized that he was quite kind when he smiled. Really, you really envy my ability to control trees, don't you? Ku Mu was not surprised that Mu Yu had Yu Meng's ability. He seemed to be very clear about what Feng Haochen had done. Mu Yu had been with Ku Mu for a few months, and he had gradually figured out this strange old man's temperament. This green-haired old man was actually not a bad person. It was only because he researched poisons that people kept a respectful distance from him. He always spoke slowly, and it was unknown what was wrong with him. When he was in a good mood, he would stutter, and when he was in a bad mood, he would speak fluently. Mu Yu had already learned how to figure out this old man's thoughts, and then finish his words for him. If he waited for this old man to say 2 words, he would have to wait until the flowers withered. Mu Yu was very satisfied with his body that was impervious to poison. Then, he became Ku Mu's guinea pig to test the poison. Come and try it. Ku Mu handed a small bottle to Mu Yu. Again, Mu Yu had the urge to curse. Ku Mu used to test the poison on the demon beasts in the valley. With Mu Yu, this experimental subject that could talk, those demon beasts were relieved. They did not have to risk their lives anymore. 2 days ago, Mu Yu was forced to drink a cup of yellow liquid medicine by Ku Mu, causing him to have diarrhea for a whole day. Most importantly, Ku Mu did not allow him to detoxify the poison. He said that he wanted to record the characteristics of the poison. It was not until yesterday that he let Mu Yu detoxify the poison in his body. Last time. 2 days ago, you made me have diarrhea and you said it was the last time. Mu Yu said angrily. Sky demon fruits effect? Ku Mu's mouth slightly raised. Okay. Mu Yu admitted defeat. When he didn't want to cooperate, Withered Tree Evergreen would deliberately bring this up. Mu Yu wanted to rescue his master from the Moyen mountain range, but with his current ability, it was impossible for him to do so. The dead tree knew all of this like the back of his hand. Moreover, the dead tree's original intention was to let Mu Yu find the 9 Qi soul cleansing flower and underworld grass to help Feng Haochen recover his cultivation. Since Mu Yu had chosen to believe in the dead tree, he could only suffer in silence, unable to say anything. Mu Yu drank the disgusting yellow liquid medicine. Soon, his whole body became dry. Then, he began to cough, his heartbeat slowed down, and his whole body became weak. This was not a big problem for him. He just needed to use his spiritual power to disperse it. However, Ku Mu had confined all his spiritual power. What? Feeling? Nausea, retching, wanting to vomit, sleepy, uncomfortable, want to die. Mu Yu stuck out his tongue. He felt like he was struggling in hell. He was clearly breathing in big mouthfuls of air, but he still did not feel suffocated. Okay, drink it. Ku Mu handed a bottle of red liquid medicine to Mu Yu. Mu Yu rolled his eyes and swallowed the red liquid medicine. Then, the uncomfortable feeling in his body gradually faded. Ku Mu looked at Mu Yu, who had become lively again. He nodded with satisfaction and said, "The plague powder is effective. Old man, why did you make plague poison? Do you want to kill those mortals?" Mu Yu jumped up. When he heard that Ku Mu was trying to make plague poison, he immediately felt that he was helping the devil. Plague was ineffective against cultivators, but mortals were almost unstoppable. Am I that bad? Ku Mu glanced at Mu Yu. He was very dissatisfied. No? The Ku Mu Valley you made poisoned so many people to death. How can you say it's not bad? Mu Yu almost pointed at Ku Mu's nose and scolded him. They don't have ability. Come in. Ku Mu began to explain the reason one word at a time. His speed was surprisingly slow. Old man, your enemy is my master. Mu Yu naturally could not wait for him to explain. He found that every time he talked about Feng Haochen, Ku Mu would be irritated and even angry. When he was irritated, he would speak more quickly. That bastard! Ku Mu cursed in a low voice. Why did others come in here if they don't have the ability? They deserved it. If you didn't come here by chance and pass my test alive, I wouldn't have bothered with you at all. Ku Mu said that he set up so many checkpoints because he would encounter similar difficulties when he went to pick the netherworld grass in the future. He wanted to choose a person who could pass these obstacles as his successor and let his successor go to that place to pick the netherworld grass. As for why Ku Mu did not go there himself, Ku Mu did not say. Then why do you make so many poisons every day and run out from time to time? Are you looking for living people to experiment on? Mu Yu asked. Ku Mu often left the valley every few days and then sealed it, not letting Mu Yu go out. No one knew where he went. Yes, Ku Mu said straightforwardly. Then I won't test for you anymore. Mu Yu said angrily. Ku Mu suddenly laughed. Every day I was angered by you. Finally, I also saw when you were angered. Because Ku Mu stuttered, he could not get any advantage when talking to Mu Yu, who had a sharp tongue. Every time, he would be angered to the point of stomping his feet. It was not easy to see that he had angered Mu Yu to the point of stomping his feet. He immediately felt very relieved. Originally, no matter how Ku Mu treated Mu Yu always had an indifferent attitude and would not be angry. However, when it came to the problem of a mortal's life, he could not sit back and do nothing. Mu Yu was stunned. This old man said so much just to deliberately anger him. Chapter 180. Okay, I'll agree to go anywhere. Let's go. Muyu said excitedly. Now, he was willing to fight with those nascent soul stage youths again. He was bored to death after staying in this place for a few months. Dead Tree was not someone who could relieve his boredom. Little Shuai and Old Dragon Vine only knew how to curse each other with Big Earthworm and Little Mouse every day. He couldn't even find someone who could talk to him normally. You have to in my disciple's name. Sure, I can even be your master. Muyu couldn't wait to go out. Although Dead Tree didn't mention anything about accepting a disciple in the past few months, he really did teach Muyu as his disciple. Dead Tree directly ignored Muyu's words. He was already used to Muyu's glib tongue. In fact, his temper had improved a lot after staying with Muyu for half a year. This was because Muyu liked to joke around every day. If Dead Tree cared too much about Muyu, he would be angered to death every day. The loss outweighed the gain. Leaving the valley and breathing in the fresh air was really a luxury for Muyu. He couldn't help but look at the green mountains and clear waters in the distance. Occasionally, he would pass by an ordinary house. From time to time, he would also see cultivators flying in the sky. This kind of free life was what he wanted. Dragon Vine didn't come out. Only Little Shuai and Muyu came out to eat. Dead Tree would bring them some food every time he came back. Unfortunately, the food basically went into Little Shuai's stomach. Little Shuai, this big eater, couldn't fill his stomach at all. I want to eat drumsticks. This time, I want to buy a lot of drumsticks. Little Shuai was suffocating. For half a year, he hadn't really eaten to his heart's content. Even if he ate to his heart's content, he wouldn't be full. Dead Tree took Muyu to a remote village. This small village was a bit lifeless. The air above the village was filled with resentment. Something felt wrong. Plague. Dead Tree said. Plague was a fatal infectious disease for ordinary people. It was also the biggest disease killer for ordinary people. Are we here to save them? Muyu walked into the village and found that many people had dark circles under their eyes and were coughing non-stop. Some people had already been carried out on straw mats, and the people carrying them were also pale. Your mission is to save them. I got it. Muyu finished for Kumu. His expression was somewhat grave. He knew the cause of the plague, how it destroyed the body's tissues, and how it caused complications. Muyu had read in the Book of Poisons that there was a type of poison that was made from the blood of plague victims. However, Muyu was a little surprised. Why would Kumu want him to save someone? In his impression, people like Deadwood who played with poison should only harm people. Old man, you didn't cause this plague, did you? Kumu glanced at Muyu. He knew what Muyu was thinking. People who play with poison don't necessarily come to harm people. Don't tell me you use poison to save people? Muyu felt that he didn't know much about Kumu even though he had been with him for half a year. My poison only saves ordinary people. Kumu walked forward and touched the forehead of a child. The little girl was curled up in a chair and shivering. Her breathing was quite slow, and her vitality was slowly flowing out of her body. So you're a good person. Muyu's heart relaxed. He remembered that Kumu often went out. Every time you leave the valley, do you come to save ordinary people? Kumu didn't answer him. He just waved at Muyu to come over. Save her, Kumu said. Kumu did leave the valley every time to save people. In fact, he wasn't a bad person at all. He studied poison, but his purpose was to use poison to save people. He advocated the way of fighting poison with poison. However, people didn't like poison, so people who played with poison thought very badly of people who played with poison. Muyu felt that he had to change his view of Kumu. He carefully recalled the introduction of plague in Kumu's poison scripture. The little girl's plague was a type of plague caused by rat. Kumu mentioned that to eliminate a kind of poison, a more poisonous herb could be used. Poisonous herbs were also fatal to ordinary people. In the detoxification method, there was a cure for the plague. Spirit grass for 1 coin, bur root for 5 coins, Lu canal for 2 coins. Mu Yu had memorized most of the poison scripture in the past half a year. He immediately said these herbs. Kumu nodded with satisfaction and threw a Qiankuan bag to Mu Yu. There were all kinds of herbs stored in it, just like a bag of herbs. These herbs could be made into deadly poisons, and they could also be made into detoxification prescriptions. It all depended on how they were used. The plague powder that was made for Mu Yu was tested on Mu Yu. Mu Yu now knew why Kumu did this. Xiao Shui was silent. It knew how to get rid of these diseases. It had its own unique talent in this area. Kumu's detoxification method was highly recommended. The way of fighting poison with poison was often easier to cure. However, this method required careful control of the composition of each poison. Once there was a mistake, it would kill people. The method of making poison was the same as the method of refining pills. Refining pills was more for the cultivation of cultivators, while making poison, according to Kumu's words, was to save people. Although the poison scripture recorded the method of making all kinds of poisons, each poison had a detailed detoxification method. In fact, it was a complete detoxification book, but outsiders didn't know about it. Mu Yu worked very hard to make the antidote. He didn't want to see so many innocent lives die like this. Ordinary people didn't have spiritual power in their bodies, so Mu Yu couldn't use his own spiritual power to treat them. Xiao Shui also couldn't. Old man, I'm sorry. I thought too badly of you. Mu Yu instantly felt that Kumu's image was great. Call me master. Kumu snorted. Mu Yu laughed dryly and said, No, I don't want to. These are two different things. Brat. Kumu himself also began to make the antidote for these ordinary people. Sometimes, he would stare at Mu Yu and ponder. It was unclear what he was thinking. However, at this moment, a dense yin-chi suddenly rose from outside the village. Mu Yu looked at Kumu in confusion. Kumu raised his head, frowned, and disappeared with Mu Yu. 2 ghastly people walked into the village. Their bodies were filled with yin-chi, and a huge aura shrouded the whole village. Mu Yu was startled in the dark. These were people from the gate of hell. This is the 5th plague village. There are still not enough souls. One of the people from the gate of hell scanned the whole village and shook his head. Ancestor Gui Jiuming ordered us to find 1,000 ordinary people's souls. Including this village, there are still more than 100 missing. Another person from the gate of hell said. It's a pity that we can't directly kill these ordinary people. Naturally, the souls of dead ordinary people are pure. It's really troublesome. We can only secretly make plagues to collect souls. This is really troublesome. Mu Yu was extremely angry. This plague was actually spread by people from the gate of hell? Mu Yu turned his head to look at Kumu, but Kumu had already disappeared. He then turned to the people from the gate of hell. The 2 people from the gate of hell were already lying on the ground. Their bodies were green and Kumu was looking at them with a murderous expression. Mu Yu didn't expect Kumu to be so decisive. The 2 people from the gate of hell had died very tragically. Their bodies had turned green and they had died from poison. No wonder there are so many plagues running rampant. As expected, it's the gate of hell's doing, Kumu said in a deep voice. Then what should we do? Mu Yu also felt very angry. The people from the gate of hell had actually done such a heinous thing. Thinking back to when Gui Xianyue wanted to obtain the souls of millions of people in Moyen Mountain Range, the gate of hell really deserved to die. Kumu opened his hand, and a pale and illusory soul was captured in his hand. Who are you? It was one of the disciples from the gate of hell. Kumu only left him. The other disciple from the gate of hell and their twins had been directly killed by Kumu. You people from the Gate of Hell have gut. You actually dare to kill mortals behind the back of the Sanchong, Mu Yu said angrily. The disciple from the Gate of Hell revealed a cruel smile. The lives of mortals are nothing. The Sanchong only forbids us from killing cultivators. It doesn't have that many restrictions on mortals. What do you want the souls of so many mortals for? Mu Yu said in a deep voice. He didn't want to argue with the people from the Gate of Hell. In the eyes of the Gate of Hell, there was no concept of life. Only souls were supreme. The disciple from the Gate of Hell shook his head. Do you think I'll tell you? If you know what's good for you, hurry up and let me go. You should know the consequences of offending the Gate of Hell. Kumu didn't say anything. He just took out a white potion and weighed it in his hand. I don't like interrogating. Kumu directly poured the white potion on the soul of the disciple from the Gate of Hell. The disciple from the Gate of Hell screamed, and then his eyes became dull. The cold expression on his face also faded. Spiritual medicine of speech? Mu Yu blinked. This thing also works on souls? According to the poison scripture, there was a spiritual medicine of speech at the peak of the North Mountain. This herb was very poisonous. When one smelled its fragrance, the brain would not listen to orders. They would answer whatever others asked and would not be able to lie. The spiritual medicine of speech was the best way to interrogate prisoners. Unfortunately, this herb was very difficult to pick because no cultivator could resist its fragrance. For a poison expert like Kumu, it was a piece of cake for him to pick this herb. However, Mu Yu didn't know that this spiritual medicine of speech could also be used on souls. I do, especially, deal with the Gate of Hell. Kumu put away the bottle. You ask. Mu Yu shrugged his shoulders. Letting the stuttering Kumu interrogate the prisoner was probably a torture for the prisoner. This kind of thing was naturally left to Mu Yu to deal with. What do you want to do with the souls of mortals? Mu Yu asked. Ancestor Gui 9 Lives wants to use the souls of mortals and demons to refine the 9 formations of possession. The disciple from the Gate of Hell answered stiffly. What is the 9 formations of possession? Mu Yu continued to ask. Ancestor Gui 9 Lives wants to possess the body of one of the 10 great demon kings of the demon race, the White Ape Demon King. The disciple from the Gate of Hell answered honestly. Legend has it that the body of the Demon King was an immortal existence. They turned from a demon beast into a human body. Their bodies had been tempered thousands of times, and were already as hard as iron. If someone like the disciple from the Gate of Hell could possess the body of the Demon King, with their control over the soul, attaining eternal life would not be a dream. Mu Yu said in surprise, Didn't the 10 great demon kings disappear thousands of years ago? The 10 great demon kings cannot be killed. They were only sealed away by a powerful human expert. Ancestor Gui 9 Lives investigated the White Ape Demon King from the demon race. The disciple from the Gate of Hell suddenly stopped talking. His eyes widened, and then his soul slowly became illusory, turning into fragments and dissipating. Old man, why did he disappear? Mu Yu looked at Kumu in confusion. He had not obtained any useful information yet. Kumu slowly explained. This spiritual poison of speech could not last long on the soul. It was already good that he could say so much. Yumeng's return is already a headache for the humans. Why are there also signs of the demon race's activity? Mu Yu thought back to Mount Fu Long in the Moyun mountain range. Yumeng had created a large group of demons and controlled them. The demon race had powerful combat strength. If they stood on Yumeng's side and became his tool to deal with the humans, the consequences would be very serious. Old man, is there anything we can do? Mu Yu asked. Chapter 181. They couldn't do anything. The only thing they could do was to save as many mortals as possible. The gate of hell was a very ancient and mysterious force. It was deeply rooted in the three continents. It was impossible to eradicate them, let alone the two of them. Ku Mu's cultivation might be high, but it was unrealistic for him to fight against the entire gate of hell alone. If they saved the people in this village today, who knew which village would be harmed by the plague tomorrow? They couldn't take care of all the mortals in the three continents. If the gate of hell wanted to act secretly, it was impossible for them to stop it with their abilities. Muyu had no choice. The three continents were so big, and he was so insignificant. It was impossible for him to stop the gate of hell. In the past, the people of the gate of hell had their eyes on the millions of souls in the Mayan mountain range. Now, they wanted to kill thousands of mortal souls for the White Ape Demon King's possession of the 9 formations. This kind of cruel means was punishable by all. The gate of hell should have been erased from the three continents long ago. However, the gate of hell's ability was very effective against Yu Meng. This was also one of the reasons why the gate of hell continued to exist in the cultivation world. The days with the dead tree passed very quickly. Muyu often made the dead tree angry just so that it would be easier for them to talk. Fortunately, Ku Mu didn't argue with Muyu. Otherwise, even 10 Muyu wouldn't be enough to deal with him. However, in this year, Muyu also unknowingly changed Ku Mu's personality. In the past, Ku Mu didn't speak more than 10 sentences in a month. Now, he could scold Muyu thousands of times a day. He was almost becoming a chatterbox. Muyu unknowingly stayed in Ku Mu's valley for a year. In this year, he and Ku Mu went everywhere to treat mortals. Not only did he have a deeper understanding of the Poison Sutra, but he also learned the formations well. Muyu's cultivation had been consolidated in the third sky of the nascent soul stage. He also had a more thorough understanding of his own swordsmanship. Although the dead tree scoffed at everything about Feng Haochen, he did not express any opinions about his swordsmanship. This made Muyu feel that it was strange. The 9 guides of Heavenly Sword was the only thing about Feng Haochen that the withered tree did not deny. For Muyu, it was particularly painful for him to pretend to be serious with Ku Mu for a whole day, especially when he was an old man who was cold on the outside but passionate on the inside. Their conversation always ended with Ku Mu's cursing voice. Fortunately, he still had little Shuai and Longting, these 2 weirdos who bickered every day. He also found a way to relieve his boredom. He lured all the demonic beasts out of the river and then used Longting's dragon might to make these demonic beasts obedient. In the end, he even trained these demonic beasts properly. He found 100 beasts array from the array that Deadwood taught him. This array was originally used to kill the demonic beasts and store the demonic spirits in the 100 beasts array. Then, the people who entered the array would be attacked by the demonic spirit. Muyu felt that this method was too cruel. The demonic spirits could be controlled by the array, but the demonic beasts could not be controlled. With Longting, he could make these demonic beasts obedient in an orderly manner, so that the demonic beasts' attacks would not be scattered and disorderly. Muyu had nothing to do, so he formed a chorus according to the different cries of each demonic beast and formed a demonic beast singing group. Every night, Muyu would train his singing group, which made the dead tree very unhappy because his meditation was disturbed. Finally, one day, the dead tree interrupted Muyu's so-called valley chorus and told Muyu what to do next. The dead tree stuttered for a long time and told Muyu a very shocking news. "You are from the Danding sect?" When Muyu heard this news, he was really surprised. The Danding sect was full of alchemists, but how could a person who played with poison like Dead Tree come from the Danding sect? The Dead Tree snorted. He did not seem to have a good impression of the Danding sect. "Why do you want to take me to the Danding sect? Are you going to use poison to fight against medicinal pills?" Muyu made a fuss about nothing. "Why do you think I am looking for a successor?" This time, the dead tree spoke very smoothly. Muyu was dumbfounded. The dead tree spent a lot of effort to create a valley that could poison cultivators to death. His ultimate goal was to find a successor and then go back to the Danding sect to prove the superiority of poison? This was too laughable. You must go to a place to find the netherworld grass and the 9 chi soul cleansing flower. If you find these 2 things, we must go to the Danding sect. The dead tree did not want Muyu to prove anything. His goal was still the same. He wanted to help Feng Haochen recover his cultivation and let Feng Haochen do something that the dead tree was unwilling to talk about. These 2 things can be found in the Danding sect? Muyu felt a little strange. If the Danding sect could find the dead tree, they could just go back and take it. Why would they still need Muyu? The dead tree shook his head and said, "You will know in the future." The Danding sect focused on alchemy and enjoyed a very high status in the 3 continents. Unfortunately, the dead tree's path of cultivation focused on poison and was not welcomed by the people of the Danding sect. In the end, he was unable to gain a foothold and chose to leave. The dead tree had always believed that there was no difference between making poison and alchemy. Alchemy also had its benefits and harms. The reason he studied poison was actually to practice medicine. Medical theory paid attention to treatment, while toxicology paid attention to injury. Medical theory started from the damaged tissues, while toxicology was the root of medical theory. Knowing how the body's tissues were damaged was equivalent to knowing the treatment method. Toxicology was the opposite of medical theory. However, because of the reputation of poison, poison masters were not welcomed. As cultivators, alchemists played the role of saving the dying and healing the injured, while poison masters were the black sheep. When talking about poison masters, the first thing that came to people's minds was the colorful poisonous fog that caused people to die miserably because poison masters used poison to injure people. However, when alchemists fought with others, the methods they used were actually the same as poison masters. They also used drugs to injure people, but their reputation was better. "I don't have much time left." The dead tree suddenly said an inexplicable sentence. Muyu laughed. "What? Are you going to enter the coffin?" Xiao Shuai interrupted from the side. "That's right, he's going to die." "What? That can't be true." Muyu had always believed Xiao Shuai's words without a doubt. Xiao Shuai was like a grim reaper. Whoever he said would die would not be able to live. He could see the difference in a cultivator's body, where they were injured, where they were unwell, at a glance. The dead tree stared at Muyu. "After I die, you must go to the Danding sect. I've already written a letter. You can just give this letter to the head of the Danding sect." "Are you kidding me? Old man, you hung me up yesterday, and you're already preparing for the funeral today?" Muyu realized something. "After I die, you'll be free. Shouldn't you be happy?" The dead tree snorted. He was a reclusive person. Because he researched poison, people stayed away from him, so he didn't have many friends. He knew that Muyu had always wanted to leave this place, but he didn't want to see his life's work go uninherited. Therefore, he firmly trapped Muyu here. There must be a way to save him, right? Muyu grabbed Xiao Shuai and asked seriously. Xiao Shuai was being shaken by Muyu and was somewhat dissatisfied. He said, "The spiritual energy in his body is filled with poison. It's already good that he's able to live until now. He's been bitterly holding on. Now, he probably can't hold on anymore. Why didn't you tell me this earlier?" Muyu was somewhat angry. "Last time, didn't you warn me not to casually talk about other people's lives? So I also didn't say anything." After Xiao Shuai was treated rudely by the broken sword last time, Muyu told him not to casually talk about these things in the future. Today, if the dead tree didn't bring it up himself, Xiao Shuai also wouldn't have said it. "You simple-minded foodie. You could have told me secretly." Muyu was really defeated by Xiao Shuai. The dead tree frowned and said, "You don't have to pretend anymore. I'm your master's enemy, And I even locked you up here. You can't wait for me to die, right? Now, you've gotten your wish, haven't you? Hey, old man, don't think so badly of people. Mu had always been clear about this matter. Although the dead tree always got angry at Mu, it was also because Mu always made him angry. The dead tree saved him from the floating, immortal island. Just this matter alone was enough for Mu to not complain about it. The dead tree was silent for a long time before he asked, "You don't hate me? Why would I hate you? I didn't lose anything now. I even learned so much about herbs and can be considered a little expert in setting up formations. You said you could save my master, and I've always believed you without a doubt because you know too much about my master. Since you know so much, it means that you were definitely good friends in the past, right?" "Enemy," the dead tree corrected. Mu shook his head and said, "No one would save their enemy. You just have some unresolved misunderstanding, right?" "Enemy," the dead tree emphasized again. He glared at Mu angrily and said, "The disciple of my enemy is also my enemy. Stubborn old man." Mu ignored him and asked Xiao Shui, "Tell me the way to save him." Xiao Shui hesitated for a long time and said, "Disperse his cultivation. Only by doing so can he live." Dispersing his cultivation meant destroying his dantian and making the spiritual power in his body disappear. From then on, he would become an ordinary person. As soon as he said this, Mu was stunned. The dead tree also looked at Xiao Shui and sneered, "You want me to disperse my cultivation? So that I can be humiliated by you and then die without dignity?" The dead tree's cultivation had already reached great heights. Letting him disperse his cultivation was worse than killing him. How could he disperse his cultivation? "Is there no other way?" Mu asked seriously. Xiao Shui shook his head and said, "He cultivates poison. His spiritual power is full of poison. After dispersing his cultivation, he can still live. This is the only way. Get out. I'd rather die than disperse my cultivation." The dead tree roared and swept Mu and Xiao Shui out of the treehouse. The door of the treehouse was tightly closed. Mu looked at the celestial demon tree. He was somewhat disappointed. The dead tree was born with a speech impediment. He was probably ridiculed by many people since he was young. Later on, he cultivated the path of poison and was rejected by everyone. His eccentric character was developed like this. He wanted to find a successor and pass down his life's work. However, by a freak combination of factors, he found the disciple of his enemy. After knowing Mu's identity, he didn't want to teach his life's work to Mu. However, because of Mu's ability to control wood, he became the most suitable person to learn poison. He already knew that he didn't have much time left. He had no choice but to choose Mu. Mu refused to call him master. Therefore, he stubbornly believed that Mu and all other cultivators were disgusted with him. Therefore, when Xiao Shui proposed the idea of dispersing his cultivation, he couldn't accept it. He could choose to die, but he absolutely wouldn't choose to live without dignity in front of his enemy's disciple. Once his cultivation dissipated, he would be immortal. For the past year, he had been very strict with Mu. He would hang Mu up for the slightest provocation. He believed that Mu would definitely take revenge on him now that he had lost his cultivation. But what he didn't know was that Mu was never the kind of person he imagined. "I won't let you die. Either you live and take me to the Danding sect, or I won't go to the Danding sect," Mu shouted. "It's up to you to go or not. If you don't go to the Danding sect, your master will die." The dead tree's voice echoed. "What about you? Aren't you also my master?" Mu said subconsciously. He didn't want to call the dead tree master because he thought it was tantamount to betraying his real master. However, he also understood that everything the dead tree did was no different from a master. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.